to the latest episode of The Claus Corner. Today's guest is a singer, songwriter, arranger, performer, mixer, producer, the founder and dean of Sevenaria University, and so much more. His latest release is entitled Meltdown. Songs such as Now or Never, Hard Time Dignity, Let It Go, All Unite in Protest make this an instant classic. So without further ado, please welcome the extremely talented and the incredibly versatile Israel Joseph to the Claus Corner. Israel, welcome back to the Claus Corner. How are you?
I'm great, Rich. How are you?
I am doing very well. I have to say,
great to be here. Great, really great.
I'm so glad to have you. You hold the distinct honor of having the longest interview. You and I don't know if you remember, you and I spoke for 5 hours. And I finally said, I have to go. I was getting rigor mortis. But we still had so much to talk about. That's what was so great about it. There was not one lull in the conversation. We just kept going and on and on. And unfortunately, I had to leave. And that's why I'm so glad that you reached out to me and said, Rich, I want to be back on the show, because I actually broke that up into 3 parts. And you just came out with this, like I mentioned in the intro, Meltdown. And I listened to it several times. This probably is your best so far. I love this album. I listened to it over like 3 times in a row. I was running, so I started doing a lot of 5Ks. Put it on my headset, and bam, take off.
That's what it's for, man. It's really an album built to give you the energy to do what you need to do, whatever you're doing. If you're running, you're driving, you're working, you're walking, you're thinking, you're planning your next move. Meltdown's got that energy. It's got that fire to keep your mind going, to keep your spirit going. It's uplifting, actually. The music is uplifting. It's hardcore, yeah, but it's uplifting too. It's got a great message, great vocals that always soar up and down, and the music sounds like you're riding on a motorcycle sometimes.
Yeah.
It's going 100 miles an hour, which is fun. It's fun. It sounds like you're overtaking other bikes, and that's the way I love music. I love music has a movement. It's actually in classical music too, and in jazz, and in a lot. You talk about this movement, you know what I mean? Like if you listen to Schubert or you listen to Mozart, it's a movement. That's really what they're talking about. The part of the music goes from dun dun to dun 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 dun. That's a different movement, and it really is a movement. And when I write hardcore, I write music, there's a movement to it. There's a dance to it that I observe, and I try to capture it.
Yep. So when you're writing the music, do you write the lyrics first and put music to it, or do you come up with a beat and say, I'm going to put some lyrics to this?
Second. Always come up with a beat. Well, actually, it depends on the record you're talking about. If you're talking about Ghetto Folk, which is a couple records back, Ghetto Folk was written on an acoustic guitar, and I came up with the lyrics and guitar first. And then I wrote the music around it. The one I released that I didn't put out, the reggae record before Meltdown, was all different style, like sometimes it's the lyrics, sometimes, but Meltdown itself, that was the music first, the beat first, the basic, I think I wrote one song and I was happy with it, but I didn't keep that particular one. So there were 13 songs on this record, but the other 12 I wrote, they just kept getting better. They just kept pleasing me, kept sounding really good. So the second song I wrote was second song on the record, which is Crisis. So it's just a matter of creating the rhythm first. Because I do hear the guitars in my head, and I hear what I want to sing, kind of. It just sounds like sounds, doesn't sound like lyrics. It sounds like just, I guess, interpretations of what it's going to be. The guitar as well. But the beat, the rhythm is there. So I can hear crisis. I say, all right, I got the beat. So I write a rhythm that has a lot in it, and when I'm pleased with the rhythm, and then I turn to the guitar, and suddenly something changes when I go to write the guitar, because I honestly can't play as good as I think. So the music in my head is like incredible. I wish I could really literally take it and bring it out because then it would be different, even more different. But I think I did a pretty good job. So I hear what I hear and I try to play it on guitar, which I did a pretty good job. So when I finally get through the first few passes of the song, I record it because I don't like writing too long. It bores me, right?
Yeah.
So I record it, and that's so it's just to close in the answer, it's drums, guitar, uh, bass, guitar, and then a couple days later, I'll come back and listen to this track, this fresh track here of three or four musical pieces of instruments playing together, and then I'll hear the vocals. So it's just like someone gave me a track, right? Like, hey, it's real, check this, but
Yeah.
it's me. I do this with myself. That's why I like writing fast. So I can do it with myself. I can hear it fresh. So like I smoke a little herb and I come back and I put on the headphones. It's I instantly hear it's crisis. That's a crisis. And
Yeah.
that song in particular reminds me of the old school hardcore. You have like God bless them, the Bad Brains, when in 82 and HR's going like, he's like at the mic killing it. It's like that kind of thing, God bless, So I just I imagined the lyrics after that because the songs inspired the lyrics. And every one of the songs on Meltdown are written in that way.
Mhm. Well, I like it like that because, like you said, not only does it keep it fresh, but I have a self-published book, and I was part of a writing group for a while, and I was the only one that came out with the book, and everybody kept on saying, "Oh, it's not good enough." I'm not like their book, and that's why they didn't come out with theirs. So they had me teach a class, and my class was perfection is the death of good. Just get it as good as you can get it, and just move on. You're never going to get it exactly how you want. You're always going to think of something else. Don't even think about it. Make it as good as you can get it, and then move on to the next one. And I love that because, like I said, not only does it make it fresh and it sounds great, but if you keep toying with it and changing this, going that, and like you're never going to release anything, you're never going to get anything done. You're going to keep on concentrating, and then you're going to get sick of that one song and just say, forget it. So
Bam. And
yep.
it's the death of a lot of artists. And they used to call that when I was little paralysis by analysis.
I like that.
That's what they used to call it. And I heard that as a kid and I was like,
Yep.
that's what Hendrix didn't want to get caught into. That's what the guys who transcend just creating music by the notes, transcend that into that other level. Those jazz artists, those rock cats, those cats that go into that other level, they don't want to be, they want to keep creating because paralysis by analysis is a bad thing. And it can happen to you. And plus, my other philosophy is don't be paralyzed by analyzing your song. Write the song. If it makes you feel good, leave it alone. Move
Mm-hmm.
on and save that creativity for the next song and the next song. And by the time you're done, you'll have a group of 30 songs that you can sit back and pick 7 of them that are the best, and then or 15 of them that you need to mix up and combine into something else. Not saying this is the way I work, but I've worked with a lot of other people in this world, and I've seen a lot of other ways of working. I like working straightforward, like, all right, y'all in the train, ready? Close that door, let's go. We're ready to be down the track. But I have seen other ways of working, of course, and that is one way of doing things, figuring things out from the bulk of songs you've written. So if you never allow yourself to finish something, that's an issue. That's a psychological issue. That's
Yeah.
saying that you don't have the real vision or faith in yourself that you should have, that you deserve to have.
Well, that's
And that means
exactly.
just do it. Because
No,
you're
that's.
always going to get laughed at. Somebody is always going to say it's not good enough, like
Yep.
you said about your book. But
Yep.
for me, when they say it's not good enough, I say, great. I heard that about the I heard that about the greatest bands in the world growing up,
Mm-hmm.
that some people didn't like it.
Yeah, and who cares? You just have
And
a
who
good
cares?
exactly.
It's just okay that you don't like it, but it's also good if you do like it because it's
Yeah.
great. It's
Yeah.
awesome music.
Well, I can give you a quick example of that. There was this one woman that had the book, and she said she read the first story. I don't think it's that good. I'm like, all right. And she goes, well, and she's trying to tell me, give me advice. Like, no, I'm all set. I'm happy with what it is. I like it. She read the second story, said the same thing. By the fifth story, she came in. She goes, "Oh my God, this was the best! I couldn't stay up at night. I couldn't sleep at night. I couldn't. This was great. Thank you very much." So I mean, I just kept letting her talk, letting her give all these, criticisms, and I really could care less because I have a thick skin. All the different things I've done, just like you, I've done, stand-up comedy, wrote a book, motivational speaking. I was in bands, so there's always going to be people that love you, and there's always going to be people that hate you. I could care. I always say, if you like me, come along for the ride. It's going to be a good time. If not, get out of the way. So
that's really the way you should think.
Yeah.
Not to their detriment either, but you got to live your life. I only have one life here. You know what
Exactly.
I mean? And it would be crazy for me to live my life inhibited by the thoughts of others, which happens when you're young. It happens like in school and stuff. I faced that. I came from a foreign land with no money, and I was like a lost, like kind of like behind, kind of like, because my family life was messed up, and I couldn't really concentrate. I was always staring into space and stuff. I had a lot of problems with other kids, man. That's for real. That's where all that rise came out of, and all that stuff. Those lyrics are come from a very deep soul, and you got to be able to rise up and do you. Got to be able to do you. Just be appreciative of who God made you as, and move forward. Do not, unless you're hurting people, then you're not gonna, that's not what I'm talking about, right? A guy like Ted Bundy, I'm not talking
Exactly.
about feel what you feel because you're a crazy person. But I'm just saying, like, if you're living without hurting others, you just want to have your self expression, man. Then do you, man. Do you. It makes the world a beautiful place.
Well, it's funny because the perfect example to that with in my life. I do a lot of different things, and people say, "How do you have the balls to do that?" So, what do you mean? I said, "I don't even think about it." And 99% of the time, people come up to me as like, "I wish I had the balls to do it. I wish I could do that." And I said, I tell the people that are always like, "I'm too self-conscious to do this or do that," and get up on stage in front of people. I said, most of the people are wishing that they could do what I'm doing, just like with you. I said, and I keep trying to tell them, if you have that mentality, so don't try to do what you think people expect of them, or do what you expect, and then people start to follow you. Don't try to follow them. Do what you want, and I'm sure you'll find people that say, "Oh wow, you like that too? I didn't realize that," and then they'll start to do what you're doing. So I've always, luckily, I've had this mentality since a very early age, maybe like 16, 17 years old. So I've been really lucky like that, and I never really cared. And it's done, that's what gives me the courage to, I'm not really afraid of failure. Failure is just, I get back up, wipe myself off, and try something else. And it's just, you can only succeed when you have failure. And I keep telling people that. That's a lot of things I talk about in my motivational talk. And I said, unfortunately, like you said, when you're younger, especially, kids are more worried about fitting in. I'm like, don't worry about fitting in. Just, you said it perfectly. Just do you. And so
I
they will
agree,
come around.
man.
Yep. Yep. Well, let's talk about this album because, like I said, I love this album. And you wrote, arranged, performed, recorded, mixed, produced. I mean, this is basically an Israel Joseph production. Did you play all the instruments on here too?
Yes, all the instruments and all the mixing, the recording was done by myself, except
Wow.
for one song, uh, "All Unite," which is the opening song on side B. The bass line was played by Norwood Fisher of Fishbone,
Yeah.
so that's pretty exciting. So "All Unite," Fishbone, Norwood is on here. Really excited about that. But yeah, he plays on one song, but everything else is me
Yeah.
playing guitar, bass, everything on the record, all the vocals, all the mixing. It was really, but it's not the first one I've done. I have a lot of recordings out there, but I didn't think they were, some of them were excellent. And I did put some of them out on a certain level as a idea for other bands to record, like a songwriter, you know, like, hey, these are ideas for songs. But this one I really wrote as a record, and I think it's a good one. So yeah, it's all me on there, man.
Well, I want to talk about that because I interview a lot of musicians, and most of the musicians tell me the same thing. They said when Spotify, especially, they keep saying Spotify, wants them to release one song per month instead of a full album. Did you have that kind of issue with them as well?
No, I went with CD Baby.
Okay.
So I released this record online a couple years ago just to draw up some interest before it was actually pressed as a vinyl record. And so, it's all DIY. So it did what it did. But I never got any restrictions from Spotify. Maybe
Okay.
with my new record coming, it's going to be some restrictions, but no, nothing.
Yeah, because I was thinking I was talking about this recently with another musician. I said you have bands with concept albums, and if they're releasing one song per month, it's not going to really mesh with the other songs. They're not going to get the whole story, the whole concept, and it's a shame because I said imagine, and I used this as an example. I said Rush was almost dropped from their label in the very beginning because they didn't have any hits, and they said, well, let's go out in a blaze of glory. They wrote 2112, which is a really good concept album, and it took off, and now they are in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. So if they weren't given that chance, if they were saying, well, release one song per month on Spotify, they would probably have been forgotten long by now. So I like the fact that, I mean, I wish these producers or whoever's saying this would remember stories like that, because let the artists be themselves and let them do what because they know, it works better than, what I think what Spotify, whoever's running that is going to do. Because I mean, like somebody said, they're like, I'd rather release an album than 18 months later live my life, have whole new experiences, and then write from all those experiences.
Yeah, but you know what's happening though?
What's that?
And if I expose the industry right now, a lot of it on a certain level is not really as it seems.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of these people are, it's like an organization. When you're not like me, see, I'm writing my own songs and recording my own songs, and you're getting my own songs, and that's the way it's been even when I was on Epic.
Yeah.
But a lot of artists have co-writers
Mm-hmm.
or people who are called ghostwriters. And if you can ghostwrite or co-write for an artist, if you get an artist to agree to that, then you can control the level of greatness that artists can achieve.
Mm-hmm.
Or you can control the level of money that artists can achieve. You can give that artist a terrible song that you play 100 times a day that people fall in love with, makes a lot of money, or you can give them a great song that you don't play at all.
Mm-hmm.
You see, you can mix it up if you want to.
Yeah.
And that's really, really kind of what's happening with that whole scene. They're really, they're creating and destroying artists, and by limiting them to one record, it limits their liability, first of all. And what it does is it kills the writer's hope or the artist's hope to have anything more than one record. So you go in with this defeatist attitude, like this is my one shot.
Yeah.
And it used to be that way in the 50s, kind of, but the money wasn't there, so the exploitation wasn't there. And that's what happens. Then you get this exploitation where they're paying you 5 cents a record and they're making hundreds of thousands of dollars or millions of dollars in some cases. So, I mean, it's, but 5 cents a record to some people is acceptable if you can put them in nice makeup and always have them in nice clothing and nice cars, but all those things are charged. That's why you're making only 5 cents. And you have to make your money on the road. You have to go out and play shows and hope that, they will give you a nice cut. And also you have to sell your merchandise on the road. So a lot of these, even local acts have to deal with this in a certain sense, but a lot of acts have to deal with that. And so it's an effort to control the artists, is what I'm saying.
Yeah, that's a shame. And I know it's probably a lot more expensive to go on tour now because, just getting the van or whatever you're driving, then the gas and the hotels. And if it's an independent artist, some of these people can't afford to do that because they're not having somebody sponsor the tour and putting them travel the world. So you're doing it all on your own with your own money. And if they're not going to pay you that well, it's going to be tough for you to go on tour. Even that's where, like you just said, you make the money because people are buying the tickets, they're buying the merchandise, and it's
And then
double-edged sword.
they want to take a cut of this merch. Now, the thing is that the industry is gonna destroy their competition.
Hmm.
So I represent, and artists like myself represent the outside competition. I
Yeah.
was on the inside once, but I walked out of it. I was like, you know what, this is cool, but this wasn't really what I envisioned, so I walked away. Now I'm on the outside creating music where I'm able to turn it out. They have already set a plan up for that to stop that, I would imagine, because that would be a direct competition to them. If say my record was certainly, uh, you know, everybody wanted my album and they didn't have it, that
Yeah.
would be a direct competition to them. So they have avenues like distributors. The record stores won't buy, but they buy from distributors. They won't buy from the artists. You have to go sell at the shows, but then the shows, they're like, oh, you can only. There's all kinds of limits for the average person who just is a talent. Like I'm a talent. I was, and I have a vision, but I can't create my vision and just go, hey, here's my vision on the market, buy it. Because there's so many walls built up to block that kind of thing from
Yeah.
happening. And they want it at the cheapest rate possible. When they take it from you, they say, hey, you're giving it to us for $6. We're not buying it for $20. And they sell it for 30. Or they sell it to, they buy it for 6 and sell it for 15. And the guy who buys it sells it for 30, and you end up with nothing.
Yeah.
It's a hard game, man.
Yeah.
Today it's a hard game, and it always was. But Meltdown is something I made for me
Hmm.
first, and it was satisfying for me. I needed it. I don't want to get into that question right now why I needed it, but it's an interesting kind of thing. But I definitely needed that record.
I'm good. Well,
I know a lot of people did too.
oh, good. Well, without getting into it, did you find it very therapeutic for you writing this album?
I needed that record. Yeah, I needed
Yeah.
Meltdown.
Oh, good.
Meltdown is a force. It's like to me the movement, the rhythms on that record really have put me in a good place. I listen to a lot of hardcore, but that's a lot of those tapes are old now. You know what I mean?
Hmm.
And I remember saying to myself, I need something new that sounds like that. And in my head, I was writing new things that sound like that. Even before Fireburn, I was writing like that's kind of what Todd and I really linked up on because we were both writing hardcore in our brains, and he was kind of a little bit ahead of the game with the band, practicing with them guys. But I kept doing that, and I want to hear that sound. It, you know, I like the pulse of hardcore. I
Hmm.
don't think I like so much sometimes what hardcore stands for, like what it's actually standing for sometimes, which means like the whole tough guy thing.
Yeah.
I don't because I'm a big guy. I'm 6 foot tall, but I don't want to be like a tough guy. That's one way out. Anybody can do that.
Yeah.
I think hardcore is better when it's more of philosophy, more of like philosophical release of energy. You know what I mean? Like you're trying to create music that releases energy that you may have pent up, like that kind of energy.
Yeah.
Or you may like la, 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 like that. You may have that kind of energy too, like you want to get along.
Yeah.
But it's a release valve, and I think that the lyrics and the attitudes should kind of reflect the most welcoming vibes,
Yeah.
but the most crazy vibes, the most
Well,
like
that's the one thing that attracted me to the Bad Brains in the beginning is like their vibe, the lyrics, the music as well. But just that they had a great message. They weren't trying to be tough guys, and you fit perfectly in the band. I love Rise. I mean, I love the stuff with HR, but Rise is such a phenomenal album. I love that album.
yeah, and I mean that there is a difference between like certain styles and everything, and
Yeah.
and I don't have any um I don't have any issues with anybody's style or anything. I'm just saying that, for me, what I would think my approach is that I come a little bit more with a more Rasta influence
Hmm.
because yeah, I was punk. Before I became a Rasta man, the only thing I saw was a punk rock,
Yeah.
and I didn't want to be. I was not part of society. I did not fit in, bro. From the time I was a child, I was like, yo, what is this place? Who are you people? You know what I mean? Are you serious? Like when I saw Close Encounters as a kid and he was like, who the hell are you people? I
Yep.
was like, yeah, exactly. You know what I mean? Seriously, I was like, exactly. And so I felt that from a young man, and I always wanted to get away. I always wanted to get out. And when I saw the punks, I immediately was attracted to it. But when I saw Rastafari, uh, something else attracted me that was deeper.
Yeah.
But I think that you know, it's all about freedom of expression, my brother.
Hmm. Yeah. Well, I want to talk about this because you mentioned that you played, all the instruments except for the bass player from Fishbone played on one song. But when you go on tour, do you actually have a band that you're going to be touring with?
When I wrote it and I listened back to it, I thought this is great, good music, and I love this album, right? And I'm gonna put it out. I never once imagined that it was not easy to play, or that there would be people who are, I don't know, just it's tough to learn or whatever it is. I never imagined that.
Yeah.
Also thought that I also forgot kind of because I'm creating music a lot, and then I'm experiencing life and creating music. I live outside of the thing, so I'm not really even listening to music, bro. To be honest, tell you all the honest truth, I'm not really even listening to music. I listen to the stuff I did when I was younger, and one or two things that are around today, but I don't like the sound of the production today.
Hmm.
Sorry.
Yeah.
I just don't like how it sounds. It sounds too slick. I can hear all the computer programs that they use to produce it, and I can hear all the auto tune and all the type of in key, like totally ear piercing.
Yeah.
It's like Disney um, on 42nd Street. You know,
Yeah. No, I agree with you. I love the older albums from the 70s and even some from the 80s with that raw feel. Like the live album sometimes had that raw feel to it. And you could tell that I liked when you heard them make mistakes because they're just playing live and they're not, it's not going to be perfect. But yeah, I can't stand when they make it so polished and you auto tune it to death that there's not 1 ounce of mistakes in there at all. It's 1,000% perfection.
totally,
So I
bro.
agree with you. Yeah, it's definitely
Yeah.
way too polished. I like more of that raw sound. And so, did you since you did everything on this album, did you definitely wanted to give it that feel? I'm guessing. Yeah, which
That's what I was
yeah,
attempting to go for. I
yeah.
mean,
Well, you
this album
succeeded.
is recorded. I use just technically speaking for a minute. I used a 335 Ibanez guitar, which I ran through a Marshall amp, which I ran the sound collector through direct into uh, the board. Okay, I
Right.
didn't. Okay, and then I ran through a processor, a very minimalist kind of open gate kind of echo gate kind of thing,
Yeah.
but
Now,
no distortion. I used the Marshall distortion on this record. The whole record is a Marshall amp. That's what I'm trying to tell you, and a 335 guitar. So it's totally punk at its rawest. There is no Pro Tools on this record. There is
Yeah.
no computer based music program. There is no autotune. There is no cutting and splicing and moving and pasting the songs. There is just straight playthroughs, track by track, the way Prince used to do it, and probably more even raw than he did
Yep.
because he was in huge studios.
Yeah.
And this is done with a small track machine. It is a digital track machine, though. That's the one part that I wanted it to be digital. I couldn't work in analog. You can't. It's just too complicated. It's too much. You gotta buy all that stuff, and it's just huge. And I would do it in the future, but not now.
Yeah.
But this is a multi-track machine, and I just learned what sound is. And you know what my dream was when I first started producing, mixing? It's just that these guys didn't have anything better than this.
Mm-hmm.
When they were recording those records, the only thing they had better was a room.
Yep.
They don't have any better recording equipment that can. A lot of that early punk stuff was recorded with one mic, two mics, into like a 4-track,
Yeah.
and it sounded excellent. So I had faith in that, man.
Yeah. Well, you know, it's funny. I was going to bring up Prince as well. Not too long ago, I saw a documentary on him, and there was also an interview there where he was talking to Dick Clark on American Bandstand. And I don't know how old he was. He maybe like he was
19.
Really, 19, yeah. And he goes, and I guess I want to say Clive Davis. It might have been another big producer. And he goes, I want to produce. He goes, no, I want to produce it myself. No, you can't do that. Yes, I can. And he refused to let them produce it. His first album. He goes, I want to produce it myself. And he finally got the chance to do it. And, you know, he stood by what he believed in, and look what happened. He became like a mega superstar. Yes, he
Yeah,
believed in himself. Yeah.
Prince was a huge inspiration to me for doing
Yeah.
that. His first album, For You, is all him.
Mm-hmm.
His second album, Prince, is him. And then the third album and the fourth and fifth is him playing 90% of the instruments, but I think there's some contributions from Des Dickerson and Wendy and Lisa and these type. But his first two albums are two of his best records.
Mm-hmm.
That first album is he's a kid, but it's so well written. And you hear the stuff before that called Minneapolis Genius. It's like, wow, that stuff is really great. When he was 16 years old, when he first got the key to the studio, he wrote an album, and they didn't name it, they named it later called Minneapolis Genius. That stuff is great. He was 16. So he was always a genius, yeah, and he was a great inspiration to me. Writing and recording his own material. Whenever I got a Prince record, it stood out from all the other music I was listening to because it said written, arranged, composed, performed, produced by Prince.
Yeah.
Now, as I got older, I realized a lot of things about how the music industry is and what that really meant. But I never stopped imagining the dream of that. And that's the dream I live.
Mm-hmm.
I really sit there and write my songs track by track and produce them myself. I don't know. I was never taught any of it, never taught how to play guitar or taught how to play instruments. I was never taught how to mix or produce. I jumped in the water in the 90s. I just said, you know what, I'm tired of singing. I'm tired of being just the singer.
Yeah.
And that's great. Some people don't get tired of it, but I got tired of it. I heard too much. I learned too much. I saw too much, especially being with the Bad Brains. I saw too much. I wanted to learn to play those instruments. I just jumped in the water. I had no teacher. I had nothing. And I ended up learning how to mix. And this album is really a result of that. I think it sounds amazing. It sounds like all the old hardcore, but it's even like when I listen to the old hardcore now and I listen to this, I think, wow, this is the next thing. This is the new thing for the kids. You know what I mean? This is the new thing. And I'm really proud of it, man. I'm really proud of what happened with this. This is a blessing. It's a real blessing.
Yeah, you should be proud of it. The album is, like I mentioned before, phenomenal. I recommend it highly to all my viewers right now that are watching. Go out and buy this album. Support Israel. It's great. There's not one bad track on it. And you know what I love about this? Because we mentioned some of the titles in the intro. There's a lot of thought behind the songs. I mean, you have songs like Protest, Unite. So I want to talk about that. So, I mean, obviously these songs were written from life experiences or what's going on in the world. And did you like you said you wrote the music first and wrote the lyrics to it for the most part, but so I want to pick one song, like the song "Protest." What's that about?
Oh, uh, Protest is like the album is a concept album, Meltdown. You mentioned a concept album. The album is a concept album. It's about the condition of our world,
Mm-hmm.
socially, politically, and the climate. Okay, the ice in the north and the south is melting down. Greenland ice caps, Greenland ice fields are melting. That's causing ocean levels to rise. That's causing more precipitation to be in the atmosphere and rain to fall all over the planet and flooding. We know what's happening. We're all living on this earth,
Yeah.
right?
Mm-hmm.
And then there's the social climate that is resulting because of that. China is getting flooded every year uncontrollably now. That's affecting the world economy because they are really the manufacturer of a lot of things, right? So this is causing political crisis, social crisis. And that is in turn the social crisis this is causing, along with a lot of other things like racism and social, not paying people enough money to live and all these healthcare and all this. That's causing a political crisis, right? And no one knows what to do. It's as though we are in the days of Egypt, and Moses is telling Pharaoh to let the children go, and Pharaoh is suddenly, as is written, becomes confused. He doesn't know what to do. He doesn't know what his heart. He doesn't know what kind of decisions to make.
Mm-hmm.
And this is where we're at right now. So all of this boiled up in me, and I was living with the protests. The protests were going on right here down the street from my house, right here on Sunset Boulevard, And so I went down and I went down to the protest for a few days and I marched too. I held a sign that said Rastafari is the solution. That was my sign
Mm-hmm.
because I really believed that. People would just sit down and check it out. They would see that. But I really thought that although the violence was unnecessary, but hey, nothing happens in the world, history of the world, even in Christianity or whatever you want to stand on your high horse and say we're holier than thou, like even in that there was violence. Jesus went into the temple and threw everything over. You know what I mean? He was kicking them out. He also he was not a calm dude. You know what I mean? He was kind of a punk himself. But the thing is that I don't approve of that in this time.
Mm-hmm.
Bob said there's time for everything. You know what I mean? There's a time. I think they made a song of that. It's time for everything. And this time, there's not a time for actually mashing down things. We have to change things. We have to improve things. The
Yeah.
thing is sick. It's not dead and decaying. It's sick. We need to improve it, right? And so I didn't really check the violence if there was any, but what I did check out was the people standing up and really voicing their opinion and having a great time in the streets and dancing. And no one was fighting. I didn't see any fights. I saw thousands of people gathered with cars parked in the street, and no one was fighting. Everyone was dancing and playing music. You could walk from section to section, and there'd be a different car or something playing music, and people were just saying, "We want to be free, and we want to be free from, the social inhibitions that keep humanity down and make us feel like we're cattle and not people. And even the cattle should be free from feeling like really like they're cattle too, but
Yeah.
that's a whole other conversation. I came back with a feeling that, it should be expressed in a song. And that when I heard the music that night, like I said, I wrote that I wrote and recorded, and by the time it was mixed, it was 3 weeks.
Mm-hmm.
So I wrote most of the music in the first week.
Wow.
And yeah, and when I came back and I heard Protest on the headphones,
Mm-hmm.
it just made me want to go, oh, it's like that old punk, you know what I mean? And it just,
Yes.
you know what I mean? It's just like, oh, it's like that scene in Terminator in a sense, but but when I heard the music, it just came out of me. It went, let's go to the protest down in the street. And I thought, that's it, man. That's how I hear my songs, bro. It just comes to me. It like comes out of me. It's not, I don't have to think about it. Every song you've ever heard me write sound happen like that. I
Yep.
hear the music and that it just pop, pop, and I hear it like I started singing it, and I rewind it to the top and let's go to the protest. Like the Beatles, you come right in with it.
Yeah.
Todd Youth alerted me to that. He said, you write like the Beatles.
That's
He said, you always come right in with the chorus. It's awesome. I was like, yeah, I don't know. It just that feels natural. So you come right in with the chorus, and that's the way it is, man. It just felt tough. The music felt tough. It was like, let's go to the protest, baby, right now.
yeah.
Like out in the streets now. Let's go to the come on, and it just felt like Prince. It felt like a Prince song too, really, to tell you the truth.
Yeah.
A lot of that music I can hear Prince's influence, but I can hear all the other influence, Bad Brains, all that stuff. So it's cool. Protest was a great song, right? It came out of that actual protest, bro. And it was
Yeah.
saying that let's go out there and have a good time. And people are talking a lot of stuff, but it's really about people power and earth power. It's about our power together as people.
Well, I love that message that you're spreading with that, because I don't know. I mean, like when bad things happen, some people think, oh, it's right to go loot and rob, but that's just going to make it even worse. I like what you're saying. Protest and make change, but there's a way of doing it in a friendly but assertive way instead of just going out there and destroying everything. That's just going to make it even worse in so many different ways. So, when you're, spreading the message like that, I think it's great.
Yeah, and I just want to add that people who are looting and destroying, you cannot fault humanity for having a breakdown
Yeah.
if you're gonna say it's okay for individuals to have disassociation.
Mhm.
That's a legal and term of mental health.
Mhm.
Disassociating is when you have a loss of your sense of reality and you begin to act absolutely insane. Now, people use that a lot in defense in court.
Mhm.
So it's a recognized human thing to lose your mind.
Mhm.
And some people lost their minds. They thought maybe it was the end of the world. You have this all through history. You can look back in history and see the scenarios where people think it's the end times and it just happens to be one little town or something. They all went insane.
Yeah.
So you have to give that to humanity to say, hey, it also like things like a crime of passion, like if you walk in on your lover with your girlfriend or your boyfriend. Well, in my case, my walking on my girlfriend, with a guy or so, like kind of
Yeah. Yeah.
punch him out, punch him out. Well, it was a crime of passion. You lost your mind. You was in the moment. That kind of thing is a defense.
Mhm.
So then I look at these looters and I say, okay, don't just look at them like they're opportunists. It's what I don't like. Suddenly, they're opportunists, and this is a class thing because when it happens in certain other classes, they're disgruntled. See,
Mhm.
and when it happens in another class, they're viewed as criminals and opportunists.
Yeah.
So another class, they have problems, so they have woes, really heartfelt woes. The wording changes, depending on what class it is.
Okay.
And I
Well,
think that's what I'm saying. Like we can't, but I don't approve of it. I think
yeah.
that people should practice. In the end, people should practice self-control.
Yeah.
That's what it's about. That's why we're here. We're here to rise to the highest
Mhm.
level of self-control that we can have while expressing ourselves. And what it becomes then is a deal about empathy.
Yeah.
You have to examine your empathy as a human being in order to pass this test. That's why I sang Love is the Answer.
And I
Because
love
in
that.
the end, yeah, in the end, it becomes about love. In the end, it becomes about empathy. Because if you really want to truly express yourself, then you got to know what hurts other people if you want to be a real person. Or I can express myself and punch people in the face all day, right? Which I don't want to do, of course. But
Yeah.
that's one way of expressing yourself. What? That's insane. So let's, that means you have to, by default, practice a level of empathy. What I'm saying is let's make that stronger. Let's try and really connect with that empathetic human being. That way we can all have some fun. And I'm talking about politicians and kings and and and, and normal people and people in power and people with money, and all these people need to connect with that human, and this planet would function better. It's not a population problem, it's a distribution problem.
Yep. But I love when people say one class is wild and crazy and out of control. Another class does the same exact thing. They're eccentric.
This is something I've dealt with my whole life. When I do stuff as an artist, I'm crazy. And
Yeah.
when other artists do it, they're artists, they're eccentric.
Yeah.
So, this is, man, we live in the matrix, and they have to control the minds of the people because they don't want, you know, they've already like made up the way things are going to be for a certain look, and they don't either want to or know how to change that look into something else, or something that can be cohabitating with the original plan. They don't, if you know what I'm saying. I'm speaking kind of vaguely, but if you
No,
listen to what I'm saying, really I'm saying something.
I know. I get it.
Whoever these controllers are, the controllers don't know how, or they don't want to create something that allows another look to inhabit the same space as that plant. So that look is always ridiculed as, oh, you're a model. A guy who looks like me probably be like, in another class, be like, oh, that's the greatest, that dude's in the, like, all the magazines, all that, whatever. That dude's well known. He's always on the podcast. They always call him because he's like having fun and like. But for me, it's different. It's different. So it's, you know, it's still there. But I think that I don't look at it that way. I'm a human being. I don't look at black and white.
Yeah.
I do. If I have to, I do. Of course, history. If you gotta talk about it, I'm not stupid. This is the thing too. You can't be like stupid. You know what I mean? You got to be able to talk reality. You know what I mean? Like I can't pretend to be stupid,
Yeah.
because then that affects me. You know what I mean? That affects my life. But I don't. If the stuff didn't exist, I wouldn't even give a hell about it. That's what I'm saying. Because not everybody's a human to me. I've had the best friends. Todd Youth was my best friend. In my life, I've had the best friends of all types of people. I suggest that we get more empathetic. I suggest that we find empathy within ourselves. No matter you want to go out and wear some spikes and punk around and go to the mosh pit and push people around. The deal is pick them up when they fall down. Let's find that empathy within us.
Yeah, no, definitely. I mean, we're all going through our own little thing, and if we can all just, be kind to each other, it'd be a great world. That's why I love what Buddhism says. Basically just treat people the way you want to be treated. I mean, their whole thing is karma. If you do something,
Yeah, but there's a drawback with that, my brother.
why is that?
Because what if you're a sadist, bro?
Oh yeah, that's
You know
true.
what a sadist is? That what it is? No, what if you're a masochist? No, what if you're a masochist?
Masochist,
And
sadist.
who's the person that likes to get hit all the time, or wants to hit? Sadist, right?
Sadist. That's
Sadistic.
a sadist.
Right, I was right the first time. I'm
You were
sorry.
right. Yeah,
What if you're a sadist, bro?
yeah.
No. Wait a minute. That's not right. It's masochist. What
Well,
if you're a
masochist, they want to be hit,
masochist?
and sadist is a person that likes to hit.
Yeah. What
Masochist
if
likes to
you're a
be hit.
masochist?
Yeah. Well.
So then you go around going, hey,
Yeah.
I want to be treated. Hit me too. I like it. I like fighting. Some people
Yeah.
are masochists. I was wrong. I'm sorry about that, audience. I know you guys are listening, but I haven't thought about this concept in a minute. I mean, I apologize, but a masochist, sadomasochism is what we're talking about. And in reality, there are people who can actually take it away from the bedroom into real life. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And really enjoy that kind of thing, getting into, situations, and they might not even know that they like it.
Mhm.
So what if you're like that? What if you're just a person that just likes? What I'm saying is that it goes even beyond those concepts today, bro. Those concepts are the fundamentals. And even I think Jesus said that too. Treat others the way you want to be treated. Love your neighbor as you love yourself. That's the way he said it.
Yeah.
That's the way he said it. Love your neighbor as you love yourself.
Mhm.
But even as we go on and we understand that philosophy has taken over the minds of people, philosophy really is critical thinking. And a lot of people have learned it, whether they know it or not. They've learned it by default through the society. So they question goodness. They question what is goodness? What is the meaning of good? Good is good for me. Good for me. Good for you. You good for us. What's good really? What good are we talking about here? The overall good, the small good. People feel this already because we're programmed by society. And so they always choose the good for me.
Yeah.
They always in the end go, hey, what's good for me in the end? I'm not doing it. I'm not altruistic, I can't say the word, but you know the word. I'm not what's good for me in the end. They're not like altruistic, They're 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 in it for themselves. And that's because they give us so little money to work for and so little future to think of. And you retire at 65 and you're gonna die at 70, that people have no love. They have no time for love. They feel like I want to take everything I can before I go. And this is the fault of society.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so there is genuinely not a godliness in society right now. There's not a and there seems like there's no use for God because God holds you back. And you're stupid when you deal with God because you're not like, and what they're talking about is philosophical. They're trying to say, oh, you're not philosophical when you deal with God.
Yeah.
If you deal with God and you're philosophical, you'll have to ask yourself, well, if there is a God, then why is there evil in the world? This is the this is the big question that they taught society to ask themselves, but they didn't teach them, hey, that's philosophy. You're learning like the basic philosophy. They just gave it to them, like the snake gave Eve the fruit. But
Yeah.
people have taken that fruit and they said, oh, well, that's true. So they do what they want to do, and that's good for the controllers because the controllers gave them that for a reason. Because if you don't believe in God, then you can go out and kill everything you want to. You can allow millions of animals to be killed every year, billions just for food. You can allow militaries to do things. You can allow presidents to get elected that are like fighting and crazy and like absolutely racist and mad, and you can allow them to go and be a president for 4 years and run a whole entire hit on our capital, destroying the entire thing
Mhm.
and looking to kill. But you can allow all of that if you just believe there is no real truth. And if God was real, then why would he allow it? They've taught people the wrong thing. The real side of it was, yeah, God is you. God is real, but God is inside of you. And you have to turn it on to be God, or else you will be the devil and you will inherit, or whatever word you want to use, you will inherit a evil world. And this
Yeah.
is why you think God doesn't exist, because you haven't acted in yourself. You haven't done the part. And then they say, oh, it's not me. You're supposed to confess Jesus Christ and you'll be saved. And I said, well, there you go. That's why you're wrong. Jesus never said that.
Yeah.
That's why you're wrong.
Well, I know people used to always say, and they used to go out and do things. Like, I'll give an example. There's this one girl. She always talked about how religious she was, and she'd say she'd go out drinking, smoking, having sex with all these different guys. And I said, well, I thought you were really religious. She goes, well, I go to church on Sunday. So she thought like she could do whatever she wants Monday through Saturday. Then Sunday, as long as she went there for an hour and said, God, I love you, it was all right for her behavior Monday through Saturday.
I'm ashamed to say, but isn't that what I discovered as a kid? Why I left Christianity as a formal thing in the West, Western Christianity. That's what it's all about. But the whole
Yeah.
thing is like that. That's why I left. I figured out, because I started asking myself as a child when I watched all those gangster movies. That's the first thing I started asking myself: how come these guys are going to church? Because I was really like a kid all about the Bible. You know what I mean? I read the Bible. I really felt like, I don't know, maybe I had a Jesus experience as a kid. I don't know. Maybe I had one of those experiences that the people have when they go to Israel, you know, and I had it as a child for some reason because maybe my grandmother made me read it at a very young age. She taught me how to read. Time I got to school, I already knew how to read big, huge words.
Yeah.
But I was wondering why are these guys going to church? That's not right. They should be repenting. The preacher should tell them. But that's before I really was old enough in my teens to understand what was really going on. Paul allows that. He taught a different religion than Jesus. Jesus taught in the four gospels a religion of change. You would change into a new creature. You would become something higher than you were before, and you would have faith that you could do it, and your faith would make you whole. That's what he said. Every time people got healed, they're like, Master, thank you. He was like, I'm phrasing for new speak. He was like, I didn't do anything. Your faith made you whole. And that's old speak. Your faith made you whole. That means you did it, not me. I didn't do nothing. You did it. And he also said, I can do nothing of myself. But if only of him that sent me, I can't do nothing of myself. Yeah. So this is you. What Paul did was he turned it into, it's not you. It's some mystical force that you can go to every time you sin and say, hey, I'll pay you $1 and I'll press the button and shake the little shaker and we're good, right? Yeah, great. And get out of here. That's what Paul taught. And so you have Christianity doing that, telling people to come here and pay $1, pay $20. I'll tell you that by the blood of Jesus, you're forgiven, which is absolutely unbiblical. There's nothing in the Bible that says that, or even a little, like, I don't even know what that is. By the blood of Jesus, you're forgiven, and then you're gone. That's it. And then you can go back out and literally murder people, like they used to throughout history, like be a gangster, be a murderer. And then on Sunday, if you come to church and you go, Christ, they say you're all good. So they're using it to run a ill system, man. Yeah. They're using it to fill the prisons. They've twisted it into a philosophy that is anti-Christ. If Christ came back today, he would be horrified. He would want to disassociate himself with Christianity at the fullest extent. In fact, he said those words in the book. He said, when I return, there will be many that say to me, Lord, we built temples in your name. We built churches, whatever. We built places to pray. We drove demons out in your name. We did all these wonderful works. And he will say, get away from me. I don't recognize you. And I don't even know what you're talking about. I don't have any place for you, because it was only about their own glorification. They were only trying to make themselves look great and cursing other people in order to do so. So in order to make yourself look great, you have to make others look small. Mm-hmm. So they destroy the lives of other people by taking their money, by fooling them, by creating idiots out of them, by not teaching the real gospel, by not teaching the real knowledge of what really is going on, by teaching about a man hanging on a cross. They are fooling the people, and he knows, and he said this would happen. So those exact people, he said he would reject them. He would say, you get away from me. That's really literally what the words are. So, they're gonna try, man. But in the end, the universe is going to provide the voice that will be the counterbalance to all of that. And we're looking for that.
Now, what I wanted to say was my personal opinion, and what I told you off the air, all the things that have happened to me, especially when I was younger. I definitely believe in God, but I think religion, like we talked about different, Catholicism, Protestants, is man-made to create order. Just like that, I think, there are all these stories. I think they're more parables than they are actual events, because they want people. Like I said, I definitely believe there's a God, I think. But like you said, I'll give you an example. I grew up Protestant. I went to a Catholic church as a field trip when we were in Sunday school. They passed the plate around, and they went in there. The woman's looking at it. She goes, we didn't get enough money. We're going to pass it around again. So, whoa, wait a minute. I thought it was a joke. And
Yeah,
they actually,
they do
oh,
that.
yeah. So I said that you didn't get enough money. You need to pass it around again. People were like, "Oh my God!" And they think that because if they give a 20, they have the easy pass to heaven instead of like $1. It's just it's
Yeah.
sad that how what they're doing to some of these people that are so easily led and just want that forgiveness and salvation. When they're like, "Oh, if I pay for it, I'll get it," and then they think they can do whatever they want the rest of the week. Yeah.
That's what's going on. And you can't do that with God. I mean, that's like you can't do that with the person in that book. And you
Yep.
can't do that with the universe or any creature out there. If you go out and start killing bears, next there's going to be a moment, no matter how much you pray to Jesus, and when you walk into that forest, those bears are going to go, here he comes again. And then there's going to be another day, you're going to leave on a Sunday from saying prayers. And when you walk in that forest, you're going to turn around and there's going to be a bear right behind you like this. What are you doing here? And you're not going to know what to do. And that's the problem with that. Even nature doesn't agree with that.
Yep.
Right? You can't go ahead and destroy everything and then go out in the world and expect because you praised a God that everything's going to be okay. Even God doesn't agree with that because that's like Molech, Baal. The problem is, bro, people haven't read the four gospels in their entirety.
Mm-hmm.
They haven't. They listen to their preacher talk about one or two or three lines every Sunday, and he or she talks an hour about it,
Yeah.
and they pay money and they leave.
Mm-hmm.
They say, "Oh, it's good church." They have never read from Matthew 1 to the end of John, the whole thing, book after book. It's not a story. Every book has the same story, but a slightly different version. They've never read it. They've never read what he was really about. If they did, they wouldn't be in those churches.
Yeah.
That's the last place they would be.
Well, the other thing too is I used to tell people, I said, why, if God's all knowing, omniscient, he's everywhere, he hears everything, sees everything, why do you have to go to this building at 10 o'clock every Sunday to tell him how much you love him and how much you want to be there for him? And why can't you just do it any time of the day? Oh, no, you can't do that. I said, why not? So just because you go to a building with a cross on it, that makes you a much better person than me. I've had these debates with people, and nobody has a good answer. I got to tell you a funny story about this. There was this.
The good answer is they're bamboozled.
Yes, exactly.
That's the good answer. They're bamboozled by history and by swords and by weapons at their necks going, either you do this or you die. And the ancestor after ancestor, down to today, they're just bamboozled by the fact that this church has taken over the land and taken over the power and says, if you don't come here, you're going to hell. And they never read the Bible. So they're bamboozled. They're fooled and they're afraid. It's a real live horror movie running that they're afraid some God is going to come out and tear them down into the bowels of the earth and go to hell, like in those movies. They think that's what's in the Bible. And so they run to those churches. I don't blame them. They're afraid.
Yep.
But when I realized that that's what they thought, I felt, because I never believed that. Because maybe I read the Bible, I never believed that, bro. I never understood. I also never had faith in the kind of God that they have faith in. Once I was a young kid and I realized that prayers aren't answered. They're not a lottery, bro. You don't pray and you say, I grew up poor.
Mm-hmm.
I prayed at Christmas for toys. I didn't get them. Why? Prayers don't get answered. And then I realized that Jesus couldn't get his prayers answered. He prayed not to be crucified. He prayed at times where he couldn't get what he wanted, yet others got what they wanted. Mm-hmm. And I realized that the world was like that. That sometimes you could cry blood, but you're not going to get it. You're going to have to go through it. And as a kid, I stood up and I went, that's what this book says. I was 6, 7 years old. I knew that. 10, I knew that. Sometimes you have to You have to, and then the law of the Nazarene in Numbers chapter 6 says, whatever he can get by his own hand, whatever he can take with his hands, not whatever he can sit there and go, oh, please give to me. Take it, get up and live.
Yes,
This
I
is what
love
I
it.
read in Numbers chapter 6. And so I got up and lived. And then I listened to Bob Marley and he said, wake up and live now, wake up and live. So I woke up and lived. But I didn't realize that everyone didn't know this
Yeah.
until I was in my teens. I didn't realize people didn't read the Bible. I didn't realize people didn't have, I didn't realize. And it's shocking to think that they believed as much as they did. But now people have gone the other way. People have gone without God.
Yeah.
That's going to be the destruction of society, because what God is not just the mind of the universe that is feeding life and continuing life in an orderly fashion on a molecular level, on a DNA level, but it is also the accumulation of knowledge of humanity, of the mistakes and the things we've accomplished and the routes we've gone.
Yeah.
And people think they're fresh today and they can do whatever they want because they're fresh, and nobody can tell them anything from the past because they're going to determine their own future. But the one thing they don't realize until they're 40, 50 years old is that humans are the same we've always been. And if you don't study that, you never realize it. If you don't read the past, then you'll never realize it. But human beings talked and acted and thought the same way for thousands of years. We are not different. If you brought a person from 2,000 years ago today, it would take about a week to get used to the cars and he'd be disoriented. But as soon as he got used to it, he'd probably be smarter than you.
Mm-hmm.
He'd have his game on, he or she would have their game on straight up. Like, I know what's going on, because we are human beings. We're not less formed 1,000 years ago than we are now. Still the same thing, still the same brain.
Yeah.
So I think that people need to understand that God can't be killed, no matter how much you want to kill God. Because if you kill God, you kill the past. And if you kill the past, you go back to the caves.
Yeah.
Because if you kill the past, you start killing education, and you start killing cumulative knowledge. I'm not talking about religion. Religion should be restricted on a certain level to those who want to do it. But God and spirituality and understanding rules and order, that should never be taken off the table, because it rises a person up from a low thinking to a high thinking. That way you can keep accomplishing and keeping people warm. The human race needs to keep warm. We need to eat, bathe, and keep warm. And that's really what we're about. Okay?
Yep.
And if you don't know how to keep warm, light a fire, you're done. If you don't know how to bathe, you're done. If you don't know how to eat, you're done. And those things take knowledge. You can't just be a wild person and figure out, how to do things. Fire takes knowledge. People learned over a long time how to create fire. It doesn't just come out of, yeah, you can go learn it on YouTube and you can remember it for maybe a generation, but give it 2 generations, 3 generations, you will forget, and then you will never create fire.
Yeah. Well, I think that's
You
one of the
understand? You understand what I'm saying, though, brother?
No, I definitely do, and I agree 1,000% with what you're saying. And I think the biggest problem is what you just said. And I think lack of knowledge, because we have the best technology we've ever had, and unfortunately, I think it's making people dumber than they've ever been. I think it's making people lazier. And an example would be they did some research. They said people don't really retain as much information as they used to because they feel like they don't have to. It's like, well, do you remember this? No, just look it up on Google. So nobody, and the people don't even know how to do cursive handwriting anymore. It's just that it seems like all this technology is dumbing us down. And then it's even worse because now, instead of making the underachievers rise up to the overachievers, they're trying to dumb down the overachievers so the underachievers don't feel as bad. It's just a
Great
sad cycle.
observation.
Yeah.
Great observation. It's a sick cycle, and I know what the end result is: slavery for all.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's definitely not good. And
That's the end result, man. Every man will be a slave. Every woman will be a slave. They will not be educated. They will not know how to cook. They will not know how to clean. They will not know how to do anything for themselves but drive to work and type on a keyboard and go home.
Yeah.
And that's it, and get drunk or party, and that will be restricted too. And then they will turn it into some kind of like uh, battery operated system where you're a battery and you just go into a thing and all day long until you're drained out and you go, oh, you go back. Now there's societies like that all over the world operating right now.
Mhm.
And that's what they're trying to do to the good old US of A, man. Can't really allow that kind of thing. This is like crazy. We have to remain free. And a lot of people think the answer is conservatism, and they're wrong.
Mhm.
Conservative conservatives, now this is my personal view, but conservatism is the issue. They are the ones who are into small government, which deregulates everything,
Mhm.
which means it takes away the power from the government to regulate the states, how the states behave. So the states then can have companies pay people low wages, work them however long hours. The same stuff we had going on before the government took control during Jim Crow will be happening again. And the only reason Jim Crow stopped is because the government grew and said, hey, you can't behave that way. But
Yeah.
they think conservatism wants small government. Well, to me, that just transcribes into they want these states to have the ability to exploit people, maybe not on a racial basis anymore, but on the basis of are you have intellect? Can you think? And if you can't, then you're going to be a slave. Work for low 3, 4, 5 jobs. It's already happened.
Yeah.
So I think that this is really a problem, and AI is adding to that problem
Mhm.
because it's then going to tell the people not only uh, can you be dumb and not know anything at all or not know how to do anything and imagine you can just go on YouTube and learn it at the last second. We're going to keep you there. We're also going to introduce AI, which is going to do everything for you,
Yes.
things you can't do. And so now you're at least going to you're gonna have no power. You're actually gonna be you're gonna be drained of your power completely because not only are you gonna be made to feel worthless, we're gonna give you something that's going to be your worth. When you
Mhm.
look at it, it's not gonna do what you do, but it's gonna be better than you. And it's gonna be happy to work for you. And it's gonna be happy to serve you. And so you will be completely incapacitated. And
Yeah.
this is how people are not thinking. People are not clear enough. They haven't put their head up out of the water enough to go, to breathe, to even think like that. They're just swimming in that water, drowning and like, you know, and they're not thinking, hey, what does this all mean?
Yeah.
And so this is what's happening. And they're making meat puppets out of people.
Mhm.
And so that's what this record is trying to fight against. The
Yeah.
sound of this album is trying to wake up meat puppets and then feed people who are already awake with the needed energy that is needed in music and needed right now in art and culture, because it's all going to the Disney type thing where everything is super produced. I noticed it in the 90s. I noticed
Mhm.
it in the 90s, and I never stopped noticing it. The
Yes.
minute Disney took over, everything went super produced, and it's never stopped. And that's all styles. And I just think it's a way of dumbing people down. If you can go into the studio and be like, I want to be the and then like all of a sudden, rewind. I want to be the perfect star that you. Then okay, that's the voice. Next, star that you ever see, star that you ever see. What is that? That's the computer. Oh,
Yeah.
great. Let's record that, and then you put that out, and the person can't even go on the road because they can't sing, or when they do go on the road, they lip syncing. This is killing art, people.
Yeah. Yeah. We'll go
Wake
look at. I mean, it goes
up.
back as you said. It was the late '80s, early '90s. Milli Vanilli. when they're like, well, they have to look, but they can't sing. They can barely speak English. So they have these two older white guys doing all the vocals. And then they got caught actually in my hometown in Connecticut. They got caught, and one of the guys in Milli Vanilli actually killed himself because he tried to record an album by himself. He couldn't get picked up, and he was so depressed he ended up taking his own life. So it's yeah, I agree with you.
But you know what people don't even look at in that story though?
What?
That they were not the only artists that were doing that, and that's what really killed them.
Yeah.
Not that they got exposed, but the fact that they were singled out as basically the only artists that were doing it. If you look at that, after that, all that dance music stuff went bye-bye, and rock and roll kind of came to the forefront, grunge.
Mm-hmm.
That's before that, it was all about, you know, dance music, and
Yeah.
and that was going on all through that scene.
Mm-hmm.
Young kids that couldn't sing or couldn't do anything like get that voice together would have a 40-year-old woman singing the vocals.
Yeah.
Like, another example is Marky. Oh no, I don't want to say who it is. It's
Well, I know
God.
who starts.
There's another song that has a very strong woman's vocal on it from that era. And the video, when you look at it, is a young girl singing that part. And the dude is rapping on it. I forget what it is, but I don't want to say it's Mark. It's not Marky Mark. It's another dude like that.
Okay.
Type of style. And it's not that girl in the video, but yet she's the one that's on the record cover and everything, because that is what was happening even in rock and roll. That was happening a lot of times, because you would have what are called songwriters.
Yeah.
And the songwriter would sound better than the artist. That's what happened with Elvis Presley. Elvis Presley had a black man named Otis Blackwell writing all his songs. And Otis Blackwell would write, I said, 1 for the money, 2 for the show, 3 get ready now, go get going, don't you? And he would sing it in the Otis Blackwell style. Mm-hmm. But Otis Blackwell couldn't get signed because of the way he looked. Yeah. He was dark skinned, and he couldn't. It was in the 50s. He wasn't getting signed. Yeah. Elvis Presley took those songs and sang them like Otis Blackwell. That's a huge story. So he would listen to the song, oh, baby, your loving teddy bear, and he would say, all right, give me the mic. And he would imitate Otis Blackwell. And that's Elvis Presley, man. So that's been going on from the foundation in some variation. Either the artist is singing actually, or you get the artist to imitate the singer. Now, Milli Vanilli must have wondered, why are we being singled out? To me, I was young, and I thought, man, this is silly. I didn't really listen to that style of music. I know a lot of people did. I know it was a multi-million-dollar hit, but I didn't listen to that style of music. Yeah. And so to me, it was just like, what's going on? What is this? But I felt bad for them for a while, but not, it is what it is, man. Music is a horrible industry. Some people take the fall to end the style of music. The same thing happened with the Bee Gees and the different variation. Bee Gees took the fall. They literally took the fall to end disco.
Yeah, unfortunately, because like you and I were talking about off the air, like I've always been a huge Bee Gees fan, and I think Barry Gibb is a genius, and he wrote so many hit singles for not only the Bee Gees but for other artists. And as I sent you, I said he's second. He's in the Guinness Book of World Records. Is only second to McCartney and Lennon. It's just that he writes so many great songs. But yeah, I remember because I love the old stuff too, like Gotta Get a Message to You, Massachusetts, all those great songs. And then when Saturday Night Fever soundtrack came out, everybody started trashing it. No, they loved them at first. And then it was like 3 years later, they were having all these burning record parties and things like that. So why?
That was all. I hate to say it, man, but look, man, I'm going to be real, because I am, I lived in that era, man. So did you. And, a lot of that stuff was rooted in racism, man. Disco was considered a black music. Yeah. Gay music, black music, the inner city music. And that's what that was all about, man. It was just pure. The same thing happened. The same people back then are the same type of people today for Donald Trump. Whether they understand their attitude towards race and society or not, a lot of them don't because they just raised that way. They think, "Are you crazy? I'm not that way." But if they weren't raised that way and they step back and see, they would understand that there's that cycle, man. Every time there's a type of movement like, disco. All right, look, it's the blues. Let's think about music alone and go through history and
Okay.
tell me where I'm wrong. Let's start with the blues. When the black people started playing the blues at the turn of the last century, what did they call that music?
What?
Race music,
Oh, yeah.
the devil's music.
Yep.
Am I lying?
No, you're not. I forgot about that,
Okay,
but I do
I'm not
remember.
lying.
Yeah, you're not lying.
But when minstrels, white guys, painted their faces and started singing that music, then what did they call it? Good music.
Mm.
Good music. When Elvis started singing, Hound Dog and different hits written by black acts before him, what they call it? Good music. Okay, let's move on. Rock and roll comes along. Little Richard, Chuck Berry. By this time, blacks are getting a little bit more notoriety, but they still cannot eat in the dining halls with the whites, and they still cannot enter the hotels. What do they say about rock and roll? That's the devil's music.
Mm-hmm.
Stop me when I'm lying, because people could say, "You're right, that." You stop me when I'm lying, bro.
No, keep going because you're not lying yet.
They said that's the devil's music. But then the British invasion happened.
Mm-hmm.
Everybody playing versions of the songs that were written by the blues artists and some of the rock and roll artists. What did they say about the music then?
With
It's
the British music,
fantastic.
yes, good music,
It's
fantastic.
mind-blowing.
Yeah, it's original.
Absolutely well-written and original stuff coming out
Yeah,
of England. And the
yeah.
English guys are going, "Are you mad? I'm playing the songs of the bluesmen, man. American blues guys is what we're playing. My
Mm-hmm.
name's my name's we're from the Rolling Stones. We play a lot of blues guys."
Mm-hmm.
And the Americans are going, "You're a genius. Well,
Yeah.
what's up? We're going to tell you blues guys on the road. We're not going to cover that. We'll cover you." Okay, so that, am I lying? Okay.
No, no.
So then you get Jimi Hendrix comes along, and basically in one man, from writing soul music and reconstructing the soul crowd, because he wrote a lot of those hits for those soul acts before he became the rock and roll icon he is. People don't know he wrote for Sam and Dave. He played with Little Richard. He hooked up the whole soul circuit. He played the whole, what was called the Chitlin circuit.
Mm-hmm.
He hooked them all up. Then he turned to rock and roll and went to England. And basically, in one man, invented numerous styles, from pure rock to metal to psychedelic. There's even some different types of things going on. What do they say about him? He's a freak. He's a show off. He's a showman.
Mm-hmm.
He's not a genius. He's a showman. You have to fight for Jimi Hendrix to get him to be with the other guitar players, Eric Clapton and all these players. Those are players. Those are guitar players.
Yeah.
But Jimi Hendrix, he's in a class by himself. It's like, kind of like a show. This is the attitude. Okay, cool. So everybody else that comes along after Jimi Hendrix is great, though. Even the guy who actually made a career kind of imitating it, who was who?
Who was
I don't
it?
even have to say who it was. You know who it was, man. He wore a hat, man. He wore, just like Jimmy. Come on, man. 1970s.
My God, my mind's going blank on this one.
Blues player.
As soon as you say it, we're
Blues
having.
guitar player. All right. So look,
Yeah.
the thing is that you had a lot of guitar players come along that get a lot of credit after that.
Yeah.
Okay, bam. Now blacks invented R&B,
Mm-hmm.
coming up with some R&B in the 70s, disco and R&B. It's destroyed. That's part of what we're talking about. So
Yeah.
am I lying so far? So it's destroyed. And then in the 80s, you have acts like all the singing acts, all the
Oh, like New Kids on the Block, in
New
sync.
Kids on the Block and
Yeah.
all that stuff, right? Coming back with all of the stuff that was happening back then. So that then it was all accepted. So New Kids on the Block, in sync and all that, it was all accepted then.
Yeah, yeah.
Then you have Brandy coming out and singing the way she's singing with that low key kind of, and people say, "Oh, she's amazing. She's amazing." But then she fades, and everybody comes along after that singing soul until this day sounding like Brandy, right? And Brandy is nowhere to be found. So look at the Bad Brains, right? So the whole history is steeped in whatever comes from the inner city is good, but it's not going to be what it is. We're going to turn it and turn it into something that's palpable, and that usually means changing even what it looks like.
Yeah.
So that has worked, and that whole history I just went through, there is no one that will be able to argue with that. And if that is the case, then there's a case to be made that there's an effort to destroy when that type of thing is created, and then others don't want to see those who create that created. Yeah. And that's I've dealt with that a lot. I think I'm dealing with that right now. With I thought honestly there would be more interest in this record when it came out.
Yeah.
This record, Meltdown, is one of the best hardcore records in a long time.
Yeah, I agree with that. I love it.
Yeah, and I wonder where is the hardcore community on it.
Hopefully word of mouth will take effect, and it'll start to spread. Maybe it'll take a little bit, be like a slow burn. It'll build and build, and then.
Well, it's been out for 2 years, and I wonder about that. I wonder what's going on with.
Yeah.
There's an outside inside, and I don't know if that's true or not, but I hope that's not the case, because that would mean that efforts on my part would always be treated as some kind of outside, like UFO, like a phenomenon, like kind of like, and that's not the way it should be, because I grew up in this scene, and I participated in this scene the best I could. I was young when this scene was really bubbling, but man, I'm the songwriter and singer from the Bad Brains. I definitely participated in this scene, and I think that it might be happening to me as we speak. I thought that a lot more people would be, out there reaching out and saying, "Hey, what do you got? You got a new record out? That's crazy." Yeah. Because when Fireburn happened, that's what happened. So it just, I don't want to feel like it depends on who's playing with me or who I'm playing with, because then that's a whole other thing then. Because what is that then? Like not. So it's to be seen, and I'm dealing with that, man. I'm wondering, I'm not ignorant of history.
Yep. No, I interviewed John Joseph like a year and a half ago, and he roadied with the Bad Brains for a while when he was young, and he was mentioning all these stories of how they would go down there, they'd play a show, it's sold out, and then the owners would refuse to pay them because they were black. Did you encounter that when you were with the Bad Brains as well?
Fortunately, by that time, relationships with Black people were a lot better. My hip hop changed that a lot. So when I got to the band, I was the hip hop generation,
okay.
and a lot of I was the '80s. They were the '70s, a product of the 1970s. I was a product of the 1980s.
Yeah,
and so things had changed. Blacks and white people didn't really have those animosities anymore like they did in the early '80s, although the problems were still needed to be dealt with. There was this movement to get together. So we never experienced any overt racism, and I want to make that clear. I've never on the road. In fact, when I went to Europe and when I went all over the world, it was just always beautiful receptions. I would say that I let the manager handle collecting money to my detriment, but so I never really experienced any kind of overt racism at all. Everyone treated me really well. But I did hear about those stories, and that wouldn't have been uncommon. A lot of young people might be looking at this and going, what are they talking about? Maybe they're not. Maybe they know it's out there. Maybe they're like, yo, I know what you're talking about, bro. It's still out there. We just try to pretend it's not. You know what I mean? Maybe you're like that, kids. But if you really don't know, then I gotta tell you, racism was an issue back then. And being color, like a color that's not white or not appearing to be of European descent, was an issue. And you had no respect. And you were talked to like a dog. You were talked to and expected to accept the pay of a dog, and expected to accept uh, second-class citizenry, although you are a citizen. So this was going on. And I'm sure that a lot of bands, dealt with this, and a lot of Black people kind of quit rock and roll because of it.
Mm-hmm.
You had a lot more instrumentalists before the 80s, but hip hop was the solution to that. A lot of people don't know that. Hip hop was the solution to that. It was, well, okay, if we're not allowed to play instruments and get in, then we're going to invent something that is wholly different. And see, it all starts with entertaining yourself. The blues started with entertaining yourself. And so hip hop started with entertaining yourself. And I think that was a reaction to, hey, all the instruments have been taken away, or our opportunity to play in clubs or opportunity to be even is taken away. And so we went back to the old music that was recorded. A lot of it was inner city music, what was quote unquote Black music, and listened to the old music and said, man, that part right there, man, doom, 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 I got, some, but that part, that doom, 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 it's so smooth, ain't it? Yeah, I wish it could go over and over and over and over. They should have made that over, and they should have kept going. They should have kept going. And we said, well, if you get another record, you can make it like that. You can just keep flashing and flashing and flash. And that became something, man. That became a way to make new music. And that is why De La Soul got sued, because the big man saw that. It's like, y'all are creating new music. You're taking the old records and taking snips and making all new music. Everybody does that today. This is Israel, that's sampling. We all do that. But there was a time where we had to do that with 2 records. You couldn't, there was no sampling machine.
I remember that. I'm old enough to remember that, yeah.
And you had to be real creative and listen to thousands of records. And that's why a lot of us like rock and roll, and a lot of us like metal and stuff, because you have to listen to the records to hear what the good parts are. And a lot of us were exposed to Ozzy Osbourne and all these things by that method, man, trying to find beats for our records, man. We were exposed to, a lot of music, jazz and all that, man. The jazz is where I first discovered jazz, was trying to find hip hop beats. I have a love for jazz music, for classical, for all types of music because of hip hop. And that really was a reaction to that, man. And I can imagine the Brains not having to deal with that. And it must have been horrible. And people don't understand that they dealt with a lot of racism. And this music, this hardcore music, is Daryl Jennifer feeling the same thing, I would imagine. Now, I'm not speaking for Daryl. I'm imagining as an artist, okay? So forgive me, Daryl, out there. But I would imagine that Daryl felt the same thing that Black people felt in the 20th century when they went to church, in the Baptist church, and they started playing those songs, right? And you ever been to a Black Baptist church, man?
I haven't been to one, but I definitely know.
You've seen the Baptist singing, right?
Yes.
You know how they get down, right? And you see some raw dog Baptist singing where there's not a whole choir and a whole bunch of clothing and everything. You see some raw dog churches, right? Where they dancing around, they jumping. You see those kind of Baptists, right?
Yep.
That's what's going on. It's the same place it's coming from. And that beat, if you listen to it, that's a holy beat, man. It's the holy beat. That's in every Baptist. That's also the beat of the ancient East. It's the beat of the horses, man, going to battle. That's what that is. And that's I'm got the same. Praise the Lord. Praise the Lord. Jesus. 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 See what I'm saying? It's that same feeling, man. You got to pray that. You got to pray the Lord. Ah! That's what rock and roll is. That's what Sam and Dave said. They said Sam and Dave are the ancient rock and roll dudes. They said, man, all we are doing is the holy dance from church. Mm-hmm. He said, we get up there and sing, oh, baby, I love you. Oh, baby, I love you. Baby, I got to get. So it's all from baby, I love you to. And that is what's going on. It started out in that. Yeah. And that was pain, man. What I'm trying to get to is that's the pain of a people that feel trapped, that want to say, listen, man, I want to be free. But if they say that, they get killed. So all they can do is play them drums like they want to be free. You understand? Yeah. All they can do is grab them drumsticks or grab those strings and hit that bass like they want to be free, but they can't say I want to be free because that means death. They can't say I want to get out of here. That means death. But they can say, well, I love you, or you know. But then the Bad Brains changed that. See, that's the genius of Daryl. They actually said it. HR got up and sang lyrics Daryl wrote about being free, man. That's where it is, man. That's what makes them special, bro. Oh, yeah. That's what makes it happen. They broke the barrier. And so when you play hardcore, you can't be a person that hates inner city people. You can't be a person that is a racial divider. You can't be a person that is that's thinking like, oh, somehow this is it was a mistake somehow that those people came up with it, but the real deal is here. Yeah. You can't think like that, because what you're doing is you're imitating something that is genuinely spiritual, and it has to be observed that way. If it's used and made to sound too clean, then that's one way of doing it, but that's always what happens in the end. Yeah. You know, it goes from sounding like a spiritual storm, like a storm blowing through, to a lawn of grass. You know, it's like a lawn of freshly cut mowed grass. You could just say, isn't that lawn beautiful? Look at how the hill rolls there, and always rolls very perfectly, and it falls into the street like that. That's wonderful. But see, with the other stuff, you don't know what's going on. It's like a forest. And you're walking down, what's going on there? There's a bear, run, you know. And that's the great part about it, man. I love it. That's why this album is written like that, because there's a lot of bears and things in this album. There's a forest in this record. It's not a lawn. This is not a lawn. It's not a finely produced lawn.
I want to talk about that cover, because you said, you know, it's a concept album, and I know you worked with Paul Stone on that album cover. So how does it express the concept behind the album?
Yes, I worked with Paul on this album cover. Paul Stone, he's done various album covers for great bands. It was my pleasure. I drew this original image, as everyone probably knows by now, but Paul added the fire and the font for the name, of the record. The fire we worked on together as an idea. See, his original concept was quite different, but I really wanted to express that the world was overheating, that the planet was overheating, and that the society was overheating, and politics and even our own internal feelings were getting to a point of we're unsure of what the future will be, which is where we stand now. So this is all representing the overheating, but it is also representing the fire that ignites within. So this is an internal combustion as well. So being that this represents the spirit of people, You know, you say the spirit of man, but you can't do that anymore because it's all like women are like, although it's woman and man, but you
Yeah.
know, it's all good. It's supposed to be man, it's supposed to be both, you know, because it's woman, you know, man with the womb, and
Yep.
that's man. And there's no difference, you're both man. But whatever, the spirit of people. But Paul got the idea and he shot back this image to me. I said, I want fire, I want like, and he shot back this image, and I thought, this is great. Let's work on this. And we worked on it and developed it, and it became this.
Yeah.
And then I also wanted the lyrics on the back of the album.
I love it.
They're 12 songs. Yeah, it doesn't look old school. It looks great.
Yes.
It's like a real record. Like you pulled it out and you're like, what's going on here? And these lyrics are great. So if the lyrics are great, then you're going to take them home because this is the great lyrics. You know what I mean? This is how we bought records in the old days. You know what I mean? You turned it over, you started reading the lyrics, remember?
Oh
At
yeah.
least I would do that. I'd read the lyrics. I'd be like, what? That's trippy. Okay, let's take it. So the lyrics on the back, and there's also more fire representing the ecological changes that are going on, the climate. In there, if you look carefully, when you buy the album, you will see that this man is in there as well. This image on the front is in there behind the flames, representing the phoenix. So it has a lot of meaning. So the album really covered ultimately what Paul and I is the phoenix, because we have to have a phoenix moment right now. We have to have a phoenix rising from the ashes moment, because if we don't, the planet is melting down. Everything is melting. Everything's shutting down, you know. It's shutting down. I don't know if everyone realizes this, but
Yeah.
it's the end. It's Good Night Charlie. We're shutting it down. But if we can have a phoenix moment here, we can ride through the shutdown. There's always a portal. There's always a portal through the thing that the Noahs survive. You understand? And we got to find the Noahs. But all of us can be Noahs if we're smart. The only reason Noah didn't have more people with him is because they were laughing at him.
Mm-hmm.
That's figurative.
Yeah.
In today, it's reality. So we all got to stop laughing at this concept that the climate children brought to us, and really take it seriously, because it's causing the disruption of the society,
I can't
displacement of
understand.
people.
Yeah, well, I was gonna say I can't understand how people do not realize how much it is affecting the planet. I mean, just the other day when we had that a massive wildfire in Canada. It was I walked outside. It was like the apocalypse. It was orange outside. That's just one example. I mean, every year it gets hotter and hotter. Like you said, all the ice caps are melting, the water is rising. They're saying that LA will be underwater. I mean, there's so much proof that there is, but it's these people that make it political, and that's what kills me. There was one example. This was probably back in the early 2000s. Some Republican senator comes out, or a congressman says, "See, global warming doesn't exist. Here's a snowball." And people are like, yeah, like really,
Yeah, they're cynical. Yeah,
it's
they're
called
like,
climate change. But yeah, I mean, like but it should not be a political thing. It should be a human thing where we're all working together. Like you said, it's reality. It's happening. What are we going to do about it? Instead of like, oh, you must be a Democrat. You believe in global warming.
yeah.
Well,
They're vested in the interests. They're
exactly.
vested interests. They have, you know, a lot of people who don't believe in this stuff. You have a lot of tiers of that, right? And there's people who are just ignorant of it. That's
Yeah.
the bottom level tier. They just really are genuinely ignorant. They work too much. They don't have knowledge about it. They don't have enough information, and they don't see it really. They're not paying attention to the weather enough.
Yeah.
They don't have enough time to sit and consider, wow, it's actually hotter this year than it was last year, or it's colder this year than it was last year. Different. They are seeing weather patterns. They don't get online. Well, you know, they don't check that in. Okay, so that's one level you'll probably never get to, because they'll always be like that.
Yeah.
Then there's the next level that has vested interests in oil companies. Their families work for the oil company. Family work for a coal mining situation. They don't want to see it go away because their families for generations have worked for this shit. So they don't want to see it go away. Then you have the other level, who are the operators of these coal mines and gas refineries, and they are making billions of dollars, and they don't want to see it go away either. So
Yeah.
all these people combined make up for a huge portion of society, and there you have your people. They don't believe it. Now, of course, they believe it and they see it, but they turn away. They turn the wink their eye at it. They turn the blind eye to it, so to speak,
Yeah.
because they have a vested interest, and that's what always is going to cost. Uh, I can go through a lot of situations right now that's affecting the planet in a negative way. But if people don't see food prices and they are unable to tie the inflation back to climate change, they can only tie it back to Joe Biden, then
Exactly.
they're lost, right? They're lost. There's no, you got to teach those people from foundation. I'm talking to the people who are already either seeing it and ignoring it, but know it's going on, or know it's going on and are ready to talk about it. That's who I'm talking to. We got to get on one accord and find a way out of it. We're never going to get rid of oil and gas completely. And I agree with Joe Biden when he says that is true,
Yeah.
because there are
too.
types of machines that will never run on solar power, at least now, at least with the technology we have now. But what we can do is get rid of a lot of oil and gas. And you know what? It's not even another thing, too. People listening, it's not even your car or your oil and gas that's the problem. The real biggest contributor to CO2 in the atmosphere is the militaries of the earth. And then comes after that is industry. So if the biggest contributor is militaries and industry, then why do you think they have you not believing in climate change? Because that means it has to start at the top. It has to start with industry and military, and they don't want to change. They want the money to go in their pockets. They don't want to put it into refining their runoff or their exhaust or their need for oil by substituting it with new technologies that depend on the sun.
Yeah.
It costs money. They would rather put that money in their pocket than spend it on R&D.
Yeah, well, they have a good thing going. They
Research
don't
and
want to lose
development.
that. Yeah, they have a good gig. They don't want to lose that. So it's
Yeah.
self-interest. And another thing I
And
think is
nobody
apathy.
blames them, but they're telling people not to believe in it, and that's the problem.
Yeah. And I think another thing is apathy. And what I mean by that is people like, by the time this affects the world, I'm going to be dead. I don't really care. And I hear a lot of people do that too. They're like, well, it's not affecting me. So if it doesn't, some people that if it doesn't affect them personally, it's not a reality. I
Yeah,
see a lot of that too.
that's a problem too. Some of us think we're gonna live, if nobody shoots me dead, I think I'm gonna live to 200-300 years old. Tell you the truth. I don't plan to die anytime soon, bro. I take care of my body. I don't ingest things into my body that I think are gonna kill me. I don't eat meat. I live pretty clean life. But somebody, people get hit by a car, you can get in a car accident. Somebody can, as I said, walk up on you and destroy you. Barring any of that, God forbid any of that, I plan to live a long time. I plan to do the experiment. My life has been an experiment
Yeah.
about if you need to eat meat and how long can you live. I've been conscious of this since I was a kid. I'm still on that experiment. I'm going to be 53 years old next year. And so I'm still on that experiment, and I'm going to see how long I can make this last. And if that's the case, then my mentality has to be different than the average man you just described it. I have to think about the future. I have to think about my future because I plan to live a long time. Now, if you're thinking like the average guy, you said just now, like, hey, 100 years, I'm going to be dead, or 50 years, I'm going to be dead. Then yeah, maybe it doesn't matter. Maybe if I thought that way, I wouldn't care either. But I don't think that way. I don't think about death. I don't dwell on I'm gonna die. I don't dwell on this is short term, get it while I can. That's never the person I was. It's never who I was, never who I was comfortable being. I never found that a comfortable state of mind. I always thought that barring no one kills me, I'm gonna live forever. And I know that's not true, but I'm gonna live a long time.
Yeah.
I'm going to do my best to live a long time. I'm going to live healthy. I'm going to try to do my best. I know what to do. I know what to do. And I'm barring any genetic issues too. You might have a genetic problem that suddenly pops up. Hey, you got cancer because you were meant to get cancer. You know, the DNA. Okay,
Yeah.
DNA, calm down. You know, barring the
Yeah.
DNA doesn't do anything, and I don't get killed. Hey, man, I'm gonna be here 50 years from now, bro. I'm gonna
All
be
right.
probably older, but I'm still gonna be talking. So, uh, you know, I have to be concerned about 50 years from now. I have to be concerned about 40 years from now. I do.
Yeah.
I do, and I think that that's the difference too. So I think, people need to find out, hey, even if you're not going to make it, your kids are going to make it. You got kids?
Oh yeah.
That's how I talk to people like that. That's what I say to those people. I say, hey, look, even if you're not going to go there and you're not going to see, uh, you know, 2055, your kid is going to see 2055. And the way things are going now, we can go through all the weather that happened here in the last few years. Everyone's talking about it because it's strange. It's not 100-year event anymore. It's not a
Yeah.
1,000-year event anymore. It's happening every year now.
Mm-hmm.
So, what do you think's gonna? Can you do math? I mean, can you extrapolate? Are you still smart enough to extrapolate? You still awake enough in society to extrapolate a thought? Extrapolate. What do you think's gonna happen in 30 years, 40 years if we keep going? What happens when you keep digging a hole? You get
Yeah.
deeper. And
Yeah.
this is it's very simple. It's very easy to understand. Your kids are gonna face it. Now go home and look at your children and say you don't care.
Mm-hmm.
That's what I want you to do now. And if you can't do it, then straighten up and look at me and be honest and let's get it together. Let's get everyone as a humanity and find out what we can do to lower the CO2 levels in the atmosphere, to bring down this thermal heating that's being caused by the sun that's melting everything. And then some people say, hey, Israel, you're out of the argument because it's all heart. It's all being done on purpose to farm for oil, to melt down everything.
I've heard that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that too. That they're doing it since the 70s, that they knew what they were doing. They were like, we're going to find oil when we melt everything down. So then we got to convince those guys too that that's a stupid thing because the coastal cities are going to be lost. And they say, oh, we're going to create new coastal cities. Well, it's not that easy. These coastal cities have been around for 2, 3, 4, 5,000 years. It took a long time to get them up to where they're up to speed here.
Yep.
And they say, oh, New York's been around not that long, but still 200 years.
Yeah. Well, that's why whenever I watch a documentary on something like, say, food or the environment, I always see who it was funded by. Because if, say, an example would be like if it's pro what you're saying, like, oh, it's a big conspiracy theory. Let's see who's actually putting the money up behind this. And you realize it's like, Monsanto. I'm just using an example of something like that. It's because then you realize, like, yeah, they want to spread this message because, like you said before with the other thing, they have a good gig. They don't want to lose it. They're making money, and they don't want to recommend, oh, try this and do this. It's going to be better for you because then they'll be out of business. So I like
And that's the
before.
same thing with the whole system, brother.
Yeah, no, exactly.
Doctors, everything, lawyers, judges, the whole system is built. That's one of the, I guess, 5 pillars of sir. That's one of the 5, that's one of the pillars. You gotta, you can't kill your own business, no matter how evil it is. I didn't mean to cut you off. I'm sorry.
Oh no. You're saying exactly what I was saying. So, and unfortunately, there's a lot of people that think if they see it on TV or if they hear it on the radio, it's got to be true because somebody said that. I personally like to do, just like I know you do. You do tons of research on what you're saying. You know exactly what you're talking about before just blurting out something that you read on scrolling across the bottom of a screen on TV. So, unfortunately, a lot of
Yeah.
people do that. Well, they'll walk from the living room to the kitchen, see a blurb on the bottom, like, and then they act like they're an expert on the subject. When, like, well, can you explain that? Well, no, but I saw.
Yeah.
Yeah. So there's a lot of that, like, ignorance on their own where they really don't want to know anything else. They don't really care, and then other ignorance where they're just being told something and they're like, well, I guess it must be true. There's nothing we could do about it.
Yeah, and then you tell them, hey, Hitler used that tactic in Nazi Germany to fool all the Germans, and they're like, look at you glass-eyed. They can't make the connection between Hitler and Goebbels
Mhm.
using that technique, the big
Yeah.
lie. Be a politician that is huge and tell a lie, and if you lie as a politician, the people will believe it. Why? Because they don't believe politicians lie to them. We have broken that part of their brain. And
Uh,
so this is what they need to understand. When Donald Trump talks to them, he is talking to the part of the brain that they broke already in previous generations.
yeah.
And when they broke as a kid for that person. So by the time they hear Donald Trump, they don't understand that they're listening to false information.
Yeah. Which I
They,
can't understand.
you know,
No, I mean, now this time I didn't mean to cut you off, but I wanted to add to that because I mean, it's proven how many times he lies. I mean, it's so much. He could basically he could be talking and saying something, and they'll have a split screen showing that what he's saying is not true, or I never said that, and they show him saying it in a split screen, and like, oh, well, that they just like an example was that whole grab him by the pussy. Oh, well, they probably doctored the audio. It's like, no, they didn't doctor
nuts.
the audio.
They did
Exactly.
not doctor the audio. He was
I know.
totally proud of that, all of those things, just like the statement about injecting bleach. He was totally proud of that statement. Look, Donald Trump is a product of our generations.
Yeah.
We know Donald Trump. He is Ralph Cramden.
Yes.
He is Cliff from Cheers.
Oh, yes.
Okay? He is Ralph Cramden, he's Cliff. And
That's
he's
funny.
also Richard Dawson. Okay.
Yes.
So if you take Ralph Cramden, Richard Dawson, and Cliff with a little bit of Family Guy, you get Donald Trump.
Yeah.
And that's who we're dealing with. We're dealing with an amalgamation of American characters. And he is who they base those characters on. People like him that are totally out of touch
Yeah.
and just say whatever they want to say. Well, they've taken those people over history, and we've seen different versions. Ralph Cramden played a poor version of him, right? He played, not Ralph Cramden, what's his name? Jackie Gleason played a impoverished version of Donald Trump.
Yes.
He was a bus driver, but he was still like, he was going to save the world by himself. Only I can save it.
Yep.
And in the end, he would always have to say, honey, you were right, because Jackie Gleason knew that character is crazy and wrote that in like, damn, I'm nuts. But it endeared you to Jackie because of that. Donald Trump never had the honey, you were right moment. He just kept going and going and going.
No, he likes to bully people. That's all he likes to do. You can add Archie Bunker to that too, I think.
Oh yeah, you can add a little bit of Archie Bunker, but yeah, that's true. You can add a little bit of Archie Bunker. He's all the American characters that they tried to show us, and that people after the writer's strike stopped being able to write. In the '90s when the writers went on strike, all of that TV died. Then we had reality TV was born because they had no writers, or at least they claimed it. They just got different writers. They got scabs who couldn't write as well, and the scabs started writing for TV, and they called it reality TV. Because it wasn't that much writing, so you could say whatever you want to, right? They didn't write that much. The old guys who went on strike should have kept their job because they were really showing us our society. But they also got old too. Literally, they got old. The guys who wrote Archie Bunker and all these people got old, man. Norman Lear, he's like almost 100 now. But these people were changing our world by showing us the wrongs. And that's why a lot of conservatives didn't like that kind of stuff too, because it was exposing the hypocrisy. But now that that's gone, and we got reality TV, and they allowed one of those people to walk around on a show called The Apprentice and be absolutely ignorant, but be empowered and ignorant, that's been destroyed. All the young people know now is, hey, if you're ignorant, you can be empowered. Donald Trump took wrestling from television sports into the business arena. He took the movie image of the boss, which never actually happened, into the business room. And he put it on national TV. And people suddenly believed it. And, belief is a strong thing.
Yeah, well,
So
go ahead.
it affects people in a negative way, man, because it shows people that being ignorant. My mother used to have an expression, and I'm sure your mother told you this too. Uh, she say, you know, you can't be wrong and strong. It's never going to work if you're wrong. You can't be strong.
Yeah.
She's saying it in a rhyme. You can't be wrong and strong.
Mhm.
But these days, that's the opposite. They're trying, or at least they're attempting really hard. They're making a very hard push that the worst people can be the people who you admire.
Yeah.
And so you have it in music, you have it in art, you have it in films, and you have it in politics. The whole society is caving in. And I don't know who is going to be these Noahs that we're looking for. You know, who are going to be these people that are going to rise to the level of, hey, to continue humanity?
Well, I
Because the
hope.
rest of it is going down, bro. You can see it. It's going down.
Yeah. I hope we find these Noahs soon. And when I didn't mean to cut you off, what I wanted to add to that was I said two things I wanted to add. Was one is like this was always everything that he says and all the worst things he says was always bubbling underneath the surface, and people were afraid to say it because they didn't know what they were afraid of what other people say. Now they seem proud to say their ignorance and shout out, well, my president thinks like that. I could think like that too. And he gave them a platform. And the other thing I was going to say was, I don't understand. The people that like him the most are the ones he's hurting the most. The people that like him are like the poor. And he even said, he goes, I love the highly uneducated. You can look it up on YouTube. So I
Yeah,
told
I
you,
remember that quote.
he
I
never said
posted
that.
it.
Yeah.
Posted
But
it.
I don't know. They love him, but he only is good for the rich. That's all he cares about. And the people that the rich pretty much hate his guts. But it's just I don't understand. Like, I mean, unfortunately,
It's a bro. It's mixed up in a lot of
it
racism
is.
too, man. And
Yes,
that's what you have to
exactly.
understand. If you don't understand that aspect of it, you'll never get it.
Oh
They
yeah.
are waiting for what used to be in the 20th century called the Great White Hope.
Mm-hmm.
Remember that? Am I
Yeah.
lying? Okay, because they can look at me and say, "Oh, he's just some crazy black dude lying."
No,
The
he's right.
Great White Hope was a reality in the 20th century, and that is what he represents to them, low key. And so it doesn't matter that he's rich. I had to think about it for a long time too to come to these conclusions. It doesn't matter that he's rich or that he's lying or that he is subhuman as far as his personality, his behavior, and his way he looks at life and all of that. They know all of that about him,
Mm-hmm.
but they don't care
Yeah.
because that is what the Great White Hope is supposed to act like. That's what Nietzsche described, the horde, the great white herd, blonde herd that comes out of Germany and dominates the world. It without care. That's what Nietzsche wrote about. That's what the Superman is in Nietzsche's writings. The blonde man that doesn't have strapped by religion or any of that. He comes in and he dominates. That is Nietzsche. That's. But then they've taken Nietzsche and crossed it with religion, as though Jesus is this man. Jesus will be the blonde man that comes in and doesn't care and destroys and sets everything right. So when you teach ignorant people a mix of Nietzsche and Christianity, you get Donald Trump.
Mm. Yep.
That's what's happened. You get, he is our savior. He is not only the blonde haired, fair haired man from Nordic descent that's coming, he is also what they describe, what the Christianity, not the Bible, describes Jesus as blonde and fair skin. The Bible says Jesus has hair like wool and skin like brass, as if it burned in an oven. This is the Bible. Hair like pure wool. That's Daniel chapter 7. He has, and his eyes as red as fire, and skin as brass, or in some translations, bronze. In the book of Revelations, Revelation describes the color of his feet as bronze and his hair as wool. So we have a description in Christianity that doesn't match the description in the Bible. And so this is a problem. This is a huge issue. And it has to be surmounted, because if it isn't, we will always get a Donald Trump. We will always get a madhouse version of what it's supposed to be. Because when you mix Nietzsche and Christianity, you get Nazism, you get fascism. By default, you get racial superiority. And this is what is going on. And no one will sit there that is educated and say, Israel, you're wrong. The uneducated will say, you don't know what you're talking about. That's all gobbledygook. The educated will say, you're absolutely right. Yeah. Because that's how the society is. That's how it is. That's what they show you in those high learning schools. That's what, when you learn the controllers did something different than a lot of people when they went to school. They took philosophy. So when you undergo the transformation that philosophy puts you through, and it tells you that the only thing that separates you from the animals is intellect, when that is affirmed in your brain, which is the biggest stake that philosophy has at the neck of God, when that is affirmed in your brain, you have two groups of people. One who will think, then we are supposed to be stewards of the earth, and we are supposed to love the earth and be the best humans we can be and provide for the animals of earth. And you have another group of people that think, okay, then we are to destroy and dominate the earth because we are the smartest, obviously. No one else can make an atomic bomb. And not only are we the smartest, racially, we are the smartest because we Europeans created this. Mm-hmm. So it becomes racism then, because apparently within those contexts, Europeans have the highest intellect. But that intellect is only being judged by standards of today's society. If you judge it by another society's standards, that's not true. Even today's society, if you judge it by Korean standards, that's not true. But Koreans are influenced by Europeans as Europeans were influenced by Koreans. And all around the world, it's true. But as you start going backwards in history, you realize that Europeans are at the standard of, at the apex that they are, because of a learning that went on in Germany, a gathering called the Enlightenment. Before this, Europe was living as everyone else in thatched huts under the rulership of stronger nations like Rome, highly uneducated, everything. But after the Enlightenment, things started changing, because in 1700s, people started learning about different things that had happened before that too. A lot of things happened before that too, for every culture. But to just think that Europe's suddenly was because they were born European, they were born with knowledge, is wrong. And that's what the ethos is in society, that Europeans are somehow smarter than everyone else, that they're born supreme. And it's that way leading in that whole type of understanding. Of course, God is white, because look at society. So Europe built this world. So it must be that Europe is supreme there. But they leave out the Age of Enlightenment, where the Arabs, even before that, where the Arabs taught Europeans, the Chinese taught Europeans, where Europeans used to go to Africa, into Timbuktu, to Mali, to learn astronomy from the professors in Timbuktu, where they went to Egypt, where they went to India. They leave out all the gathering that Europeans did of the old nations in order to get all the old stuff to put it together. Yeah. You see, Europeans were the first to put it together. That's what makes the European different, not supreme, not superior. He was the first because he's the youngest formation of culture 300 years ago, he was able to look back at 3,000 years of culture. You think the Egyptian was able to do that? You think the Indian was able to do that? No, because they didn't live at this time. But in this time, when those cultures had fallen away, but those writings, all the gathered information was left. Look, Oppenheimer, Einstein, they all read the Hindu mathematics. Everybody learned from Sanskrit. Everybody learned from ancient mathematics, and are still learning today. They still call the pyramid a wonder of the world because they're still wondering how that was built, right? So it's a gathering that happened that created this modern ethos of people who come from Europe that appear to be in control on a certain level. And that's also because Europeans were fervored by their belief in God and went out into the earth for 200 years and invaded nations and really supposedly took lands, right? Killed people and took lands. And then had 300 years of free labor from Africans. So that's like having a business for 300 years where you never had to pay your workers anything. You know, you would be the most profitable person on the planet. And you wouldn't also be the most powerful, you'd be the most educated person on the planet, where everyone that was treated unfairly would be at a disadvantage. Then if you free those people and you don't educate them and you keep them at an advantage, you will always be superior. But not because you were born that way, but because destruction happened and a gathering happened in order to make you this way. So if you forbid others from that, when you tell them they can't riot, or you tell them they can't go to school or be educated about the past on their own, when you tell them they can only go to your school, then you're doing the wrong thing for people because it's not fair, right? That's not fair. So this is why there's the idea that Donald Trump is of a superior breed, or because they have instituted that Jesus is white, right? And even though we are living in an age today where people are discussing the brownness of Jesus, to most of the people that believe in Donald Trump, they're not discussing that. That's the last thing they're discussing. So we live in an age where Jesus is still some white guy, you know, and that he's going to come back. So Donald Trump is representing all of that to the ignorant. Yeah. And you can't help them because they're ignorant. They don't know. You would have to teach them. You'd have to open the Bible and begin to teach them the Bible. But if they're following Christianity and they're following their religion, despite the fact they think they're following the Bible, they're not. And in their religion, it teaches them that Christ looks like Donald Trump. He's got blonde hair. He's a white guy. And he's going to come back one day and he's going to change everything. And then in walks Donald Trump. Says, hey, I'm here. So they're going to believe in him. Then he go, and you know what I'm talking about, because I don't have to mention what I'm speaking of is the evangelical vote.
I was just going to say that. That's funny that you said that because I wanted to bring that up. I have no idea why they are for him. They're supposedly they're.
But I just explained it.
Yeah. Well, you know what? You're right.
I just explained it, man.
Yeah, it just kills me.
Everything I just said is what it is. They are waiting for this guy to come.
Oh, that is
the
so
evangelicals
sad.
Believe in a Europeanized God that will come and set everything right. And Donald Trump has been that dude since the 1980s. Do you know that Donald Trump has been running for president since 1988?
Yeah.
That he's had his toes dipped in that water since then?
Yeah.
That they've always been talking about him as the president?
Yeah. It's sad. And the only good thing I'm hoping is that, I mean, he basically represents 30% of the people. And I'm hoping when he goes, and the Republicans are so afraid of him, I have no idea why. The only one that is standing up to him right now that is running is Chris Christie. I don't know why the rest of them, they should be just, do you think that he would, if something happened to, if all the indictments that are happening to him happen to somebody else, that he would say, oh, I can't say anything bad about him. I'm running against him. he would destroy them. So I don't know why they're so afraid of him. They should.
Mm.
It's pathetic that they're talking about like, oh, if I get in office, maybe I'll pardon him. Like, are you fucking crazy?
Bro, they believe in that whole
Yeah,
Messiah thing, bro.
yeah, it's
Plus he's a machete mouth.
yeah,
But they said Jesus is gonna be a machete mouth though.
yeah. You know
They
what's
said
else?
he's gonna have a double-edged sword is gonna come out of his mouth. But that means the real Messiah that returns is gonna talk to you, and it's gonna even destroy what he's about too. That's what that really means.
Yeah,
It means that it's gonna cut both ways. When he says stuff, you're gonna be like, that's offending God. That's how he's gonna talk, not just offending me. That's blasphemy. That's what the double-edged sword means. But they're using that for wickedness, bro. They're doing whatever they want to do. They're holding Bibles upside down. They're talking about racism. They're exploiting it. And
yeah,
it's for their own benefit because they don't believe in Jesus. They believe in money. So if they
yes,
exploit it and turn it on its head, then it can be worthless. They can package it, they can buy it, package it, and sell it for more. That's what the whole Donald Trump's whole end game is probably is.
yeah. Whenever I hear
To
people say,
devalue America and buy it up as his property.
yeah, no, I wanted to add to that because whenever I hear people say, I said, what can you possibly find redeemable in this guy? Well, when the economy was up when he was there, I said, who gives a shit about that? Talk about, I mean, the polarizing of America, the way he spreads hatred, racism, he promotes the worst qualities ever in a president, and the fact that,
And
well,
don't you
the
know why
economy was good.
the economy was good? Don't you know? Because he took away all of the protections to the environment
Yep.
that are called regulations. He destroyed all of the protections to your groundwater. The reason the economy was good is the same reason that train crashed and spilled all of those chemicals all over the groundwater in those people in that town a few weeks back, and
Yeah.
no one has done anything about it because he gutted the Environmental Protection Agency. He killed the EPA. He killed your protection of your own planet, of your own world, of your water, of your safe air. Donald Trump killed that. And when he killed that, companies agreed to come in and build their factories and build everything they could and hire you.
Mm-hmm.
But that's why the economy was good, because he was destroying your future. He was hiring you to work in a dystopian future. Dystopian. You have a morbid outcome to what seems to be a good thing. You guys have to wake up to this kind of activity. This is how they use cultures throughout history. They present it to you as something good. Nazism was presented as the common good. You see, this is bold-facedly how it was presented. This is for the common good. This is the common man, the common good, the commonality will benefit from this if you all get together as one and unite for evil, for obviously making people cry. If you're making people cry and you're hurting people, then you know that that's wrong, right? You know you wouldn't do that on your own. You wouldn't just go to someone's house and make them cry and hurt, right? Because it's wrong. It's just not what you want to do for most people. So if they're asking you to collect for that, you can't suddenly say it's right then. It's evil, but they're asking you to look past it in that way. So it's still a problem that Donald Trump is or people like the conservatives are promoting, because they would like to rule people and get all the resources, all the money, all the benefits for themselves, and have people just think of them as gods. Well,
Mm-hmm.
they did that for years in different civilizations. Look at history. I think India was the last one that pulled itself out of that thing, right? India is now doing really well, but for a long time, for hundreds of years, the people looked at the leaders as gods, and they didn't work. or a lot of people found it hard to function because they were overly involved in religion, and they were not the first people to have that happen to them. All throughout history, including the Egyptians, it was like that. That's one of the arguments Jehovah has in the Bible. He says there are too many gods and it keeps you from doing things, basically. Serve me and you'll be free. That's the real idea of one God. Not that it's dominant, I want to dominate you. It's, hey, man, you're wasting your whole day giving bread to these statues. Just be free. I'm the only God there is. Don't have to waste your whole day. That makes a lot of sense to me. Well, right now, people are wasting their day on Donald Trump and wasting their day on the gods that they create in their minds, man. And it's a problem because Trump is not a force for unification or making America great.
No.
He doesn't want to understand that America is diverse. What does he want to do with the 30%, 40% of people here who are of color? What does he want to do with those people? What does he think's going to happen? Is he thinks we're just going to disappear? Like we're just going to, something's going to happen where we're not going to exist? His idea of make America great is you you serve the idea that I am the leader, I'm the smartest guy, and all subculture and inner city culture is negative, and only the farmers and the guys who work in factories are positive. And and if we enhance these guys, middle class, we're going to make America great. Now, that's that's denialism in the highest levels, right? That's like, okay, I'm standing in a bank and there's no one around me on the line, and I'm just gonna walk up to the teller and start talking. And the guy yelling at me, "Hey, you didn't wait online. Who is that guy? I don't know. He must be crazy." So that's what that is. No one acts like that in real life. In real life, you walk into the bank or the grocery store and you stand online. You observe there are other people here. I'm going to walk down the aisle and not just bang into other carts like they don't exist. There are other people in the store. I'm going to conduct myself with civility. He is asking the entire society not to conduct himself with civility.
Yeah.
And to ignore that there are people that have other values and other ways of living, especially those city people. Ignore them. And how you're going to make America great by ignoring 30, 40% of your population. I don't know where he's going with that. But again, people aren't smart enough, aren't sitting and thinking enough. They're not, oh God, it's not that they're not smart enough. Forgive me if I said that in the past. It's not that they're sitting and thinking enough to understand what I just said. Yeah. How are you going to make America great again when you're ignoring 40% of your population? It's just impossible.
No, I was gonna say I hate when they think that he's such a tough guy. So calling people nicknames like Ron DeSanctimonious or Little Nicky Cruz, like that is not a tough guy. It's more what somebody just said recently. It's like he's more like a petulant child who doesn't get his way and he throws a tantrum. To me, and I can't stand also like people that don't take responsibility for their own actions, and he makes excuses, blames everybody, and it's like, you don't want a leader like that. He is not a leader. Somebody made a great point. He couldn't get a job as a as a cashier at Ocean State Job for everything he's been arrested for and different things. They're going to have him run the country. I just don't understand.
Exactly. That's a great point.
Yeah.
But he's a jock. He's a jock. He's a dominant jock, bro. You know how jocks are in school, bro. Everybody, they're scared of the jock. Look, just think of the psychology of the jock and the people that are bound to the jock. School. That's what's going on in this school.
Yeah.
And except it's racism. It's like a little bit of racism. You bow to the jock that looks like Donald Trump, not the jock that looks like Barack Obama was a type of jock too. He was a type of jock, but he was a friendly jock. He was more like a friendly in the hallway, like, "Hey, what's up, man?" All right.
Yeah.
Donald Trump's more like the jock, like, "Hey, stupid, what's going on, stupid? Hey, do you come to school today?" Smack him around a little bit. It's so funny. You're so funny. Don't hit me, please. Oh my God, don't hit me. You're so funny. You're great. You're great. Ain't that great? Ain't that great? You know that character. We grew up with that character in the 20th century.
Unfortunately, yes.
Right? right? Oh, you're so funny. Don't hit me. You know, like that is who Donald Trump is.
Yeah.
And that's who they all are doing, that act. Oh, you're great. Don't hit me. It's great that you're bombing that guy. Look how you threw him down. It's so funny. You know, like that's what's going on, man. And he's got a bunch of dudes just patting him on his back, and they're afraid of him because every time they say anything, he goes on and he says, "Hey, that guy's got little hands," and you know what that means. And it destroys him because then he's got to sit at home with that. You know, he's got to sit. You got to walk around town with that. They don't want to deal with that because these guys went to school. They went to Ivy League schools.
Yeah.
You understand me? They don't know how to deal with this ignorant madman. They
Yeah.
don't know how to come back and be like, well, hey, guess what? Well, he's the one with little hands, but he tried to put it on
Yeah.
Rubio. But they don't know how to come back and say, hey, well, you got a big head, bro. You know that? Your head looks like a fucking box of fucking, you know, like go off on him. Say something.
Exactly.
What are you going shopping with that thing? I mean, come on. Hey, Jughead. Call him Jughead. You know what I mean? That's what the streets would do. They would say, all right, Jughead, good for you. And you have everybody laughing at him. But they don't know how to do it because they've been schooled. They're proper.
Yeah.
They're proper. They're like trained. They're like, we're not supposed to act like this. But that's how he's getting them. He's scaring them because he talks faster than them. Even I don't know how to talk like that. I don't know how to talk like that. You know, I didn't spend my time berating other people, bro.
Exactly. And
I didn't go live my life berating other people and talking bad about other people. I try to lift people up. I don't know how to berate people. He made a living off of that. And so he's doing it to America.
Yeah. I mean, and again, I mean, the rest of the world's looking at this like this. They're laughing at us. And I talk to other people from other countries that where I work, and they'll tell me, they're like, "Oh yeah, we just can't believe this is going on." And also, I think the other
because it's a reflection on us.
Yeah,
we
exactly.
choose the president.
Yeah.
The president just doesn't walk into the Capitol and act like that. That'd be different. They'd be like, "Oh, those poor Americans." They know we voted for this. They're like, "What is wrong with you people?"
Yeah, I know. And then the other thing too, I think.
Hey, pause it for just 5 seconds. Can you hit pause for a second?
Yep.
All right. The other thing you were saying.
No, what I wanted to say was I think besides the fact you're right, he's a bully. They're actually too intelligent, and the way they were brought up was the proper way, so they don't know how to fight back to a bully like that. But also, I think that the other reason is they're so afraid of his base. I don't want to lose these voters, and so just
that's another thing. That's the main thing.
Yeah, if you're yourself and you go after them, the voters will come to you. That's why I think the only one that has the balls right now is Chris Christie. He's just really going after him. And look, I mean, the perfect example too is Liz Cheney. People who actually know how Liz Cheney, she voted for Trump 93 or 94% of the time. She is the ultimate Republican, their dream. And they got rid of her because she had the nerve to disagree with their God. It's pathetic. It's like
that's the whole woman is inferior thing, you know.
Yeah.
Man is superior, woman is inferior thing. A woman must be submissive to men, and she didn't want to play that role. I admire her. She was like, forget that role. That's not my role. I'm going to call him out.
I love it. And I would actually vote for her. Like if she was running right now in the Republican primary, I'd be like, yes, I want her, because she's actually not afraid to be who she is and what she stands for.
Yeah, but the Republican Party needs to consider who it is, and they need to understand that racism, playing the race card, is only going to work to get you elected, but it's not going to work to fix your country.
Mm-hmm.
Period. You know, it's just going to work to get you elected. Because look, the reason these crazy wackos get into the House of Representatives and the Senate, like Taylor Greene and all these people, is because the Electoral College states control a large portion of not just the presidential vote, but the vote who gets in to represent people. So the Electoral College states are mostly in the South, a lot of them. Now, California has a big Electoral College count, but a lot of the southern states are sending Electoral College people that are just like the people that started the Electoral College in the first place. The Electoral College was started when slave owners and stop me if I'm lying, slave owners had slaves at the time they were slavery. And simply because these guys wanted more representation, they found a way to create to work the 1/5 clause and to count all of their slaves as 1/5 as a human.
Mhm.
So all of those 1/5 will eventually equal to one human, right?
Yeah.
So 5 slaves is one human, right? Basically, mathematically.
Yeah.
So if you have uh, uh, 50 slaves, then you have 5 humans. Is that how it is? Or no, you have 10 humans. I think that's the mathematics. I'm embarrassing myself by not doing math. 50, right, 10 humans.
Yeah.
And so it went. And so these people said, well, I've got 1,000 slaves. That means I have, so many humans, and I have more humans than you. And they may not be humans, but amassing all those 1/5 makes them more humans than you. And that's where the Electoral College was born, saying that, well, then I should be the one representing because I have more slaves.
Mm-hmm.
You understand? That's crazy.
Yeah.
I used to think as a kid, the Electoral College was the wise council of America that knew what to do because they really were the ones who studied and like knew what was going on and knew this person's really bad. And although I always knew that they were the ones who elected the president. I always knew that.
Yeah.
Not us. We don't elect the president. They just take our temperature. They stick the needle in our mouth or somewhere else and say, how do you feel? Go ahead and vote and tell me how you feel. But our vote doesn't matter. The Constitution says the Electoral College elects the president, and they've already chosen him long before they're taking our temperature. So that vote, that whole presidential election is a distraction. The only thing we elect are the congressmen and the senators and our local leaders. And when you take any test or you take the test to become a citizen, that's what you have to learn. You do not elect a president. That's why they always have us the presidents of a race, because they don't want us to elect the Congress people. They don't want us to think about what I'm talking about, the Electoral College. So the Electoral College has been sending these kind of racially minded people to Washington, D.C. So when you get the Tea Party and before them, the Dixiecrats, and after the Tea Party, the MAGAs, and before the Dixiecrats, the actual racists, when you get this stuff going to Washington, that's why.
Yeah.
Because the Electoral College was designed that way. And so it's not a wise counsel. It's a way to keep this racial agenda on the plate, and even if it's not overtly that's what it is. That's what it amounts to, as they say. That's what it amounts to, and so that's what's happening, and that's the reason why racism is hard to overcome in this country. That's the reason why we'll always get idiots like these MAGA people in place that are not the people who are following. I'm not calling them idiots. I'm calling the representatives, right, who went to DC with this crap and didn't say, hey, people, that's not the way the world works.
Yeah.
You know what Americans need to be told, bro? You know what we need told as Americans? This is what we need to be told. And I'm going to lay the brass tacks, my mother used to say. This is what we need to be told. We do not produce the resources that we need to live as a society here in this country. That's number one. The things that you enjoy, even sugar, we do not make it here. Most of American goods, maybe now it might be changing because I haven't done my research in the last year, 2, 3 years, but for history, most of American goods have come from overseas. We are an importing nation because we have very few, or we are refusing to use any natural resources, one or the other. But the deal is we have very few. We don't have bauxite to make aluminum. We don't have cocoa to make, like different, you can go on and on. There's a list. That is the first thing Americans need to understand. We do not produce what we need here. So if you cut the rest of the world off, you'll starve. Mm-hmm. We will starve. We will starve. Or we will have to do without. We'll have to do without a lot of stuff. The second thing is, you need to understand, is the reason you have that stuff, we have it here in America, is because there was a time in the 20th century and the 19th century and the 18th century where we were marauding the entire planet. We were going to countries and taking that stuff and not paying those people. And that happened in the 20th century too. We were in nations taking oil, taking gas, taking every resource and not paying for it, or paying very little for it.
Yeah.
And that's why Americans were living on the high horse, people. It is not because there was some blessing or some great God had come and blessed this country and we were all living in freedom and high horse. No, it was because there was Americans were in countries taking things from people and bringing it here. And that worked for a while. That worked for a while until the 70s, when people began to catch up with education and technology. And Honda began to produce its own gas-powered engines. And other countries began to produce their own technologies because they got smart. And suddenly these countries said, hey, we can't let you take this stuff anymore for free. We need it now. And so Americans cannot, and plus we decided that being constantly at war is not what Americans wanted. We didn't want American soldiers to die anymore in the 20th century. Remember? We didn't want any more bodies coming home. Remember? No more body bags. Remember? Remember we used to chant that? Okay. Oh, yeah. We took people out of those nations that we were taking those resources from. We removed them. That's why things have changed. That's why America is not up here anymore and the world is down here. You have to understand, we're dominating people.
Yeah.
So we're down a little bit, but it will never be under anyone because there are two things. America is a dominant military, and America is the default currency of the planet. Mm-hmm. You cannot rise above it because it is gold. There is no more gold. And plus, there's not enough gold on the planet to feed everyone. You can't put gold in everyone's pocket. That's impossible. The dollar solved that problem. That's what's going on. Yeah. So we were here by stealing. Now we're here because we're trying to equalize the playing field to give these guys a little bit to play with. If you're always here, these guys have nothing to play with. You're always dominating them. You're destroying them. And then the resources get destroyed too. So if you wheel it back down a little bit and give these guys some gold on the market in India and China and make the BRICS nation and all, then they have more to play with. It's like Vegas. You guys ain't got nothing to play with. The house is done. You got to give people something to play with. This is what's happening, America. It's not falling apart. It's not being destroyed. We're not losing. We're not, America's going to be just all that Donald Trump crap is crap. He knows what's going on too. Mm-hmm. Giving people something to play with. So the play fields, because we can't militarily dominate them for their resources anymore. Just can't. People don't want to do that anymore too. Militaries don't even want to do that. People have grown with their hearts. They're like, yo, dude, it's wrong to do that. Yeah. And so we're not doing that anymore. And so, of course, we're going to have less. Of course, things are not going to be made in America because America wants to work for you. You forget want. In order to live in America, you have to work for $25 an hour. You cannot make a pot spoon for $25 an hour. The pot spoon will cost $14 to buy it. Mm-hmm. No, it will cost $30 because you have to pay to work.
Yeah.
The pot spoon will cost $40 if you pay someone $25 an hour to make. This
Mhm.
is why it's being made overseas, America, because we can no longer steal the resources. We have to pay people to make it. We don't have it. So we have to pay them. And they are willing to work for $1 American, $2 American, because with $2 American, they can rent an apartment.
Yeah. Well, I went
With
to
two American
Romania.
dollars, we can't rent anything. So
Yeah.
we have to understand this is what's happening.
Well, I was going to say I went to Romania years ago, and I was talking to I was on a Dracula tour. But one was the historical aspect with Vlad the Impaler, and the other one was the Dracula, or the Bram Stoker horror movie. So I was talking to somebody, and a girl from Canada. We were talking about the economy. This was back in 2005, and somebody from Romania goes, "Oh, the economy's not that good." I said, "No, it really isn't that good right now." And he goes, "I said, why? How much do you make?" He goes, $5. I said, "What, $5 an hour?" He goes, "No, I make $5 a day." I said, "You know what? I am going to stop complaining about everything right now." That's why I love that quote by Mark Twain: "Travel is fatal to prejudice." And it's so true. So if people actually
Yeah,
went out and of their own backyard and saw how other people are living, they'd realize how good they have it. And the other thing I wanted to add to
man,
what
they
you were
talk about
saying,
the ghettos. They talk about the ghettos over here. If you've
yeah,
ever been to Europe, man, you've seen some of those European ghettos, especially the ones that existed in the 20th century. You would think these places were, some of them were paradise. Some of those European ghettos, especially Eastern, like, yo, it was not easy, man, not easy. I mean, that's where the ghettos started, man. That's where they started. And those
yeah,
ghettos are older than the ones in Manhattan. And you go there, it's like, that's rough, that's hardcore, that's like, wow. So yeah, man, it's where you open, you travel, you see, it's not race, it's people. It's not
yeah,
race. You put people in a certain condition, they're gonna live raw dog. They're gonna live like as close. They're gonna live worse than animals because animals don't live like people. When people get bad, people get bad and live worse than animals. There's nothing to describe them. An animal does not live like that, right? So people live like the worst expressions of human beings when you put them in a bad place.
yeah. And the other thing I wanted to add to what you were saying was I tell people all the time. I said to a lot of the other countries in the world, we are bullies. Like, we're going over there telling you, you can't have this, but we can do whatever we want. We can have a nuclear bomb. You can't have this. Oh, we're going to go in there. We're going to take out your. Imagine if some other country came over and said, "All right, well, we don't like this leader. We're going to take him out and put our own leader in there." It's just that it's yeah. We come now. You're solidifying everything I've been saying, and I didn't know the extreme history that you're telling me about. They just went in there, and I definitely had a feeling that was going on, and you just told me that it was. And it's just they're going in there and saying, "Yep, that's ours. We'll take this," and you can't really
Yeah,
fight us. We have a
that's
better
what used to
military.
happen.
Yep.
That's what used to happen, and it's still happening to an extent, but it's not as bad, and that's why the economy is going down a little bit. And people need to understand that. They need to understand. Look, if you want to live like America, if Donald Trump wants to make America great, like it used to be, like how it used to be, then we need to. Then that means going to war again. It means going to war and dominating, having a third world war, man. That's what it means, because the reason we were able to dominate all these nations, we didn't just walk up into these nations and start robbing. That would have been impossible. We won a world war, and we
Hmm.
were able to, we're going to put all the nations back together, and that's why we were getting resources for free. But those days are over. So
Yeah.
what is Donald Trump trying to say? Let's have a third world war. That's what he wants, right? That's what it
Yeah.
looks like what he wants. And that would mean he has faith in America. He's betting the American military will win. And then he's betting all the resources will be free again. And this is a madman's plan. We cannot go through another world war in order for America to dominate everybody again, to take all the resources, which is what they're basically saying. If we follow this whole train of thought we're speaking on right now, this is what it's going to end up doing. Let's create a third world war so we can dominate like we did in the 20th century. And this is not smart.
No.
Uh, it is not smart because you leave Americans in a very bad position. At least when Americans were dominating the 20th century, Americans were still connected to Christianity and education, right? Now, when you have that type of situation, people are too wild, man. They're crazy. What really, how are we going to have any society if we just tell people they can do what, just, that it's okay to dominate people and take. How are you going to have it? Because what I was meaning to say was that if you have a semblance of Christianity and stuff like this, at least you can think Americans used to feel like, well, that's the government doing that. You never do that on a personal level. You know what I mean? That's like big government wars and don't bother me with that stuff. But now it's like, yeah, on a personal level, we could do this to others, and it's okay to do it because Donald Trump's doing it.
Yeah.
And if he can do it, he's like the trendsetter. And it's just really bad, man. That whole scene doesn't understand it, but it's rooted in a lot of its bigotry, a lot of its fear, and a lot of it's just plain out ignorance about how the world works and the history of the world.
Yeah.
And that's a bad thing. And if you tell people that, they'll say, well, so what? What are you going to do about it? I'm going to go vote for Donald Trump. And then what are you going to say to them? You can't yell them down. We just have to hope that people wake up, as people generations before me has said. We just got to hope people wake up, because you can't educate them. They'll hate you more for it. People who hear the things I said today, some people will not listen to the philosophy. They will not. They will not. They will only hear white, black, white, black, white, black. He's a racist. White, black. He's talking about white people. White, Europe, Europe. What's he talking about? European descendants. That's all they will hear. And I know it, but I don't care. I've never cared.
Yeah.
Because my intentions are not that. If they only listen, they'll see it's not that. It's a holistic view, just talking about history. And I have to include who we are as people. I can't say, hey, the aliens, the Martians. I'm not talking about the Martians. I'm talking about Europe. I'm talking about Africa. I'm talking about where we live right here and what happened to these nations. You can't tell me I'm a racist by saying that. Yeah. But that's what people like Donald Trump would love to say about me. He would say, oh, he's a bigot and all he thinks is in black and white. But he's the one who performs the actions of dividing the society into black and white by certain means.
Yeah. Well, he's just like, I'm bringing this up because I think it proves what you're saying. I saw an interview years ago. Phil Donahue was on Bill O'Reilly's show, and Phil was making these points that were very, very true. It was all about, I forgot who was in office. I think it was George W. Bush. George W. Bush was in office then, and he's making these. And so Bill O'Reilly is screaming, yelling, very calmly. He goes, just because you're loud, Bill, doesn't mean you're right. And I love that, because the people that don't have any education behind them or don't have any thoughts of their own will just scream and yell, and they'll say, shut up, get out of here, or they'll walk out because they have nothing to back up what they're saying. So I love the fact that, like, I'm talking to you so calmly, you have everything that you're saying to back up. We've talked for 3 hours right now, and you definitely know what you're talking about. And so education is the key when it comes to that, because most of these people that do like that have, like you just said, they're not going to believe what you're saying. They really don't want to learn what you're saying, and what they heard, it's got to be a truth, and there's nothing it can ever be.
And there's nothing else, and that's part of I hate to say, that's part of white supremacy as well. That's part of any supreme culture that thinks it's supremacy. The Egyptians probably had this happen with them as well too. If you're Egyptian, you're right. How could it be wrong? I mean, how could Donald Trump be wrong? Ultimately, he is in charge because white supremacy tells them this information. It tells them he must be right by default. As I said, it's not just white supremacy. It's been this way throughout. The Babylonians had this. He's Babylonian. He's one of the sons of the royals. He must be right. He's one of the kings. He must be right. This has happened throughout history. So they don't want to hear what I'm saying. What I'm saying takes a little bit of thought to sit down and really think it over. And another part of supremacy is thinking is wrong. They teach you that. They teach you that by default. If you think that this is wrong, you are wrong. If you think that this is right, you are wrong. Just go along with it. And this is the condition that they're asking people to get under, that don't think at all. The uneducated is the best. You just go along with what we say. If we say the sky is blue, if you say the sky is green, we're going to argue that it's green, and we're going to believe that, and that's what we believe. And they're willing to accept that because Christianity is that way. It's what the church believes. Even if you say, hey, what you're believing is different from the Bible, even if that's not your argument, the argument can still be made that what their particular church in this town is different, believes is different than what the particular church in this town believes, and what the particular church back here in this town believes. All three of them believe different things, and they're teaching a different lifestyle and a way of approaching things that are totally not biblical. But this is what they believe. So if you go to this guy in this church and say, hey, man, this is not biblical, you can fight him on two fronts. It's not biblical, and it's not what these two other churches are saying either. But he'll still say, but that's what I believe.
Yeah.
So get out of here. Yeah. And this is very disruptive, because you can't really tell people what not to believe. Yeah. You can't get in. You can hit them with the facts all day. You can say, hey, the reason the economy is thrown off is because climate change is displacing people, and people can't make the goods you're used to getting, and because we're not invading and taking things anymore like we used to in the 20th century, and because Donald Trump put a value-added tax on goods coming in from China. And what does a value-added tax mean? It means that Chinese suppliers have to now pay Americans to bring goods here. Let me say that again. It means that when they get their ports, they now have to pay enormous money to bring their goods to the shores. And he sold that to Americans as a good thing. That the China is taking our money and our jobs and we're gonna take it back by giving them the value-added tax. And all these stupid people, all of these MAGA people said, oh, that's great. But what happens to you if you tell a guy, hey, I want you to deliver to my house? Of course, I want you to deliver to my house. But wait a minute. But you want to deliver boxes to my house? I want that. But every time you deliver a box to my house, you need to pay me $5. What do you think is going to happen, Rich?
You're not going to get that package.
Okay. So if you and I, as average guys, could sit here and think about that, what do you think happened on the world stage when Donald Trump said, hey, you want to deliver those packages? Well, you got to pay the value-added tax now. You got to pay millions, thousands, hundreds of thousands. What do you think happened then?
No.
We're not getting that package.
I know.
And that's why there's no more 99-cent store. That's why you go to Home Depot and there's 2-3 choices, and they're all plastic and they're all messed up and they don't work and nothing fits together anymore. Because he destroyed. So you got to tell these MAGA people, look, your man is destroying the world for you, and he's telling you to blame other people. He's the one who did it. So yeah, it's a big thing that they have to think, and thinking is not easy.
Oh yeah, now
pause for a second, bro. You're gonna have to edit this.
All right.
2 edits.
Yeah,
but
not too bad. Not 2 edits in 3 hours is not a bad deal. Unfortunately, I have to get up early, so I'm gonna have to go soon. But I'm loving this conversation, and I want to continue this. So, you know what? I mean, if I would love to get do a part 2, actually part 5 with you sometime.
Anytime, Rich. It's always the reason we talk this long is because you're a smart guy.
Thank you. I appreciate that. And
you are a smart guy, and you have a lot to say, and you ask the right questions, and you leading questions. It's a great interview, and that's why I spent 3 hours with you.
Yep. Well, I have a mutual respect for you. But before we go, for this edition of my interview with Israel Joseph, let's one more time plug my new favorite album.
Let's do it. We got a lot in about this. This album is a new album by myself. Check it out. It's got some of the best hardcore, put it this way, some of the best music I think around today, because it's of the reality that it represents. It's got great sounds. It's a great looking record. Right now, you can only get it through me. You got to go online, Facebook, Instagram, and you message me directly, and I'll send you a copy of this album. It's a really beautiful record, 160-gram vinyl, feels good in the hand. It's got some great packaging, and there's only a few of them made. So you're talking about a rare record. There's not many of these. There's not thousands of them, you know. There's only a few hundred of these albums. So get it while you can. It's totally DIY. There is no corporate funding behind Meltdown. There's no corporate money, no influence. This is made by me, and I'm really proud of it. It's here. It used to be just digital, but now it's to be passed on to generations. It's got a lot of life, and it's a great record, and I hope you guys would call me. Direct message me. You can call me if you want, it's fine. You direct message me on Facebook or Instagram and order your copy. I mail them. I put them in a box. I address them to you, and I mail them off. They usually get there in 4 days. It's a great system, and you're buying directly from the artist. And I can autograph it for you too, actually. I think they're going to be worth something. I don't know why, but I think that in the future, these albums will be worth a lot more than people pay for them when they get autographed, simply because, you know, I've tried to live my life in a true way, and I think people are going to remember that. So buy it for your family, buy it for your future, and buy it to listen to, because Meltdown is a fantastic album, and I love it.
Yep. You know what? I couldn't have said it better myself. I love the album, and what I'm going to do is, after this interview is over, I'm going to message you. I want my own autographed copy. I've listened to it, I have it, but I want an autographed copy from Israel Joseph. So
you got it. You got it, my brother. You got it, my brother. I'll be happy to send you one. And as I said, it's a contribution to the artist, but I really think there's only 100 of those, you know, and I only got 40 of those left. I only signed the red and black ones.
You know what? We'll make that 39. One's going to me. I said
that's the key.
I said make that 39. One's going to me.
That's great. I'm happy about that. That's great.
Right.
Thank you.
Israel, as like I said, I could go on it. We could probably talk for another 5 hours, and I would be just as riveted to the screen because I'm enjoying this so much. I will be in touch with you soon too. I want to schedule a part 5, and you know I'm going to make you the new co-host of the show. Just me.
Great, awesome. I'll chime in anytime you want, Rich. It's always a great pleasure being with you and talking about music. Guys, please go out and buy the album. It's out there, and listen to Rich's show when you can. It's a great podcast. He's a smart guy. Guy knows what he's talking about, and I always enjoy being on. I look forward to seeing you guys again.
All right, thank you very much. We will talk soon. And that wraps up the latest episode of The Claus Corner. A huge thanks goes out to singer, songwriter, arranger, performer, mixer, producer, and the founder and dean of Sevenaria University, Israel Joseph, for taking time out of his extremely busy schedule to be back on the show, and he will be back yet again. Another huge thanks goes out to editor extraordinaire John Bristol of Elmwood Productions for always doing a superb job editing this show and making it available to all. I am also extremely grateful to Joseph Timothy Quirk and Rob Bull for all they do to make the show available on several Connecticut radio stations, as well as Spotify, iTunes, Amazon Music, Audible, and iHeartRadio. Thank you both very much. And lastly, but definitely not least, I need to thank you, the viewer, for always tuning in. Enjoy your day, everyone.